Okay, good morning, everybody. We're going to pick up from the Mishnah, Daf Kuf Mem Dalid Amud Beis. We're going to try Mitzvah Hashem get all the way till Daf Kuf Nun Beis Amud Aleph, all the way on top of the Amud. So let's jump right into it. The Mishnah says we're going to learn quite new concepts regarding Sheishvinin. So Achin She'asu Miksason Sheishvinos Bechayav, what the Mishnah Kuf Mem Dalid Amud Beis. The second Mishnah, where one of the brothers went and gave a present to his friend. Now the father sent one of the sons, that's the case, it's one of the brothers. And in such a case, the Mishnah says, Chazru Sheshvinas, the way it worked was, we're going to see it's even Nigba Bebezdin, the halacha is you can even demand it as a alva, it's expected that a person delivers, he gives over, he's misamech with the chassan, and he gives over a present, and then it gets returned when he gets married. That's how it works. So we're going to see it's dafka by nasa, you're not chayiv to give it before at the time. So what happened was the father sent one of the brothers to deliver the Sheshvina. Now that it comes back after the father dies, the halacha is chazra la'emtza, it goes to the tfusas habayis, it goes to the middle. We don't say, oh, you Reuven, you're the one who sent it. We're gonna, now that it got delivered, it has to go back to you. Why? In the Mishnah's Masber, Sheshvina is nigbis bebezdin. And the whole reason is because it's mamish like a halva. And just like a halva that you return to the father who owed him, the money goes to the middle, who adin, this Sheshvinas. However, if a person just sends his friend jugs of oil and wine, ain't nigbim bezdin. The reason is mipnei shein gemilas chasadim. And the Rashbam is masber two options. Either there's no chuppah, therefore there's no concept of sheshvinin, or inami zok Rashbam that there was a chuppah, however he wasn't there to be mesameach, and therefore it's considered a regular matana ba'ama, and that's why it's not nigbis bezdin. Frek the Gemara, Mishnah clearly says that it goes back to the middle. We have a Beis that says otherwise. Ramini shalach le'avish sheshvinis kisha chazeres. Chazeres loy. Lafuke our Mishnah chazeres la'emtza t'stira. And the Sefer over there says, Nishtalcha la'aviv sheshvinis. When it was sent to the father sheshvinis, now you got to return, you got to give it back. Kisha chazeres min ha'emtza. That the whole mishpacha has to chip in, because it's the father's money really. It's a tusas habayis. Everyone has to chip in and pay back the father. So the question is, over here this Beis says that it goes back to the brother and not to the family. On that we have two roots, and one is Rav Asi, Rabbi Yechanan, Kitnan, Nami Masnisin. When you read our Mishnah, it means Nishtalchalavitnan, which means to say is not that the brother is sent to the father, rather now that you are returning what you had to return, therefore it's Chazeres. Frek Demar doesn't say that. Clearly says that the brothers went and gave someone to Sheshvinas. How are you telling me it's talking about receiving, not giving? The Gemara answers, Hachikamer, Chazra. Gemara answers, Tani, you have to read it in Echanami, Limiksasan, that it made the few of the brothers and made them into receiving Sheshvin, and therefore they have to return and give it back. For Gemara, you can't say that. It says that you are giving it back. That it's not the scenario rather you're receiving, rather you're giving it back. I'm sorry, which sounds like that when you return it back in the Sefer, it says Chazalam. So the first case, not Hachikama. Chazar Ligvois. Now that you got to return it, you know where you accept it from. Nigvis, Ma'emtza. Again, everyone chips in and pays from the middle. That's one Mahalach. Rav Asi Amaloi Kasha. I'll be Mechalak to you the Mishnah and the Brisa. Kan, in our Mishnah where it says Chazares La'emtza is Bistam, a very black and white case that the father just sent one of the brothers, therefore it goes back to the middle. However, the Beis is talking to Kan b'mefarish, where the father says, I want you, Dafka Reuven, to go and deliver the Sheshvinis, Kedetanya Shalchai Aviv. The father sent Sheshvinis Chazeres Loi. However, Shalchai Sheshvinis Stam, which would be the Brisa, which would be the Mishnah, Kisha Chazeres la'emtza. So that's a different mahalach. Shmuel amahacha, what we're talking about, another teretz, be mechalik. Beyavam askinon she'einay noita b'roi k'memuchsuk. The case that we're specifically talking about is that what happened was Reuven sent a present to Shimon. Now, Reuven died. His brother Levi took over as a yavam. So Shimon has to give back, that's the case, you always give it back, like it's a regular aval, you give back the matana. So we're saying, since the person who's being lahakim al shem achiv is a yavam, we all know that a yavam, we learn it from Achar, is not noita b'roi k'b'muchsuk, this whole concept of sheshvinis is only roi. Therefore, when you return the sheshvinis, it has to go back to the middle, because ein a yavam and a b'char are not noita b'roi k'b'muchsuk. Frakdemar mechlal, it's very clear, the idach mishalim, I have to pay back. Look, why? Because Reuven, that died already at its time, gave Shimon a matana, and now Shimon has to give it back. Why is that true? Why can't Shimon say, give me back Reuven? Reuven died. However, if he's alive, no problem. I'll dance with him at his chasna and give him back a sheshvinin. Me like Tanya, don't we have a brayso that says Malkum Shenagul Lahachzer Kedushin? We're going to be Machalik, there's Kedushin money, there's Sivloinus money, there's Moyar. We're going to see different types of Mahalchim, exactly what it is. We're talking about Kedushin money. It clearly says Malkum Shenagul Lahachzer Kedushin Machzirin, Malkum Shenagul Shalai Lahachzer E Machzirin. V'Amar Rabbi Yisrael Bar Amar Ukva Meshmuel Lo Shanu L'Shemesehi. Dafka, if she dies of a mace, who? If he dies, ein machzirin, the kala, the girl does not have to get back the kedushin money. My timing, you know why? Yichayli shitayim, I want cut memeyam and alf on the top. Tnuli baili vas machimai. The kala has a time to give me back my husband. I have no problem. I'll give you back your kedushin. Achinami nema tnuli sheshvini vas machimai. So the question becomes, why in the world is this person Shimon? If Reuven's not alive yet, why in the world does he have to pay back to his brother that took him over? The chassan is not around, Reuven's not around anymore. Mara answers, Amar Rav Yosef, no, you know what we're talking about? Very specific. Now, there's Erusin, 12 was alive, and Reuven had a chasna. So Shimon was mechayiv, he comes to the chasna, he comes with the Scheiner present, he's dancing with them, Shivi Mei Mishta. Then the Shever Brachas, that's when he died, that's where the Yavam came in. So in such a case, when was the chayiv? The Chayiv was immediately at the time already took place. You can't have a tainot Tnuli Baili or Tnuli Sheshvini V'es Machima because you taka dance with him, and therefore Shimon was already mechuyev in to pay back the Sheshvini. However, don't forget, it's still considered Ra'oi. Therefore, the Yavam is Eina Naito B'Roi Kivamuchsa. And that the Gemara continues Vaiter Lema Tnuli Baili V'es Machima is a Machlaikis Tanoi. It's a Machlaikis Tanoim the Tanya. Hama'aretz is a Isha. So when it gets Erusin, now there's Erusin, 12 months, and then there's Kedushin. Now during those 12 months, it was very normal, it was very normal to give matanis. Even today, when we get engaged, it's not so real, there's no halachic status. However, even today the minhag is, comes Yom Tovim, comes certain stuff, we give different types of matanis. You could give a nice flowers, it's very negay at the nafkaminas. If you're giving flowers or you're giving them a naira, you're giving something that stays, something that doesn't stay. But it's the same concepts. In those days it was halachic, because she was talking marriage. She was an Esha Shishla Kula Amma, she was an Rusa. So in those cases, then let's see it inside. Hamaris is Isha, someone who's Maris, a woman, if she's a psula, Goivim Asayim, like we all know, Vaman and Mana. So Makum Shenagul Lahachzer Kedushin, Machzir, depends on the minhag of Makum. Makum Shenagul Shalachzer Kedushin, Ein Machzir, and Divrei Nasan, the Cheetahs of Nasan. However, Yehuda Nasi says, I'm a Ba'amas Amru, he suddenly says as follows. Makum Shenagul Lahachzer Machzir, Makum Shenagul Shalachzer, Ein Machzir. For the more obvious question, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi Hainu Tanakama. On a Muskar Rishon looking inside, there's no chiluk between Rabbi Yehuda Nasi and Tanakama. Elalav. Therefore, you have to say, you know what the nafkamin is as follows: Tnuli baili ve'esmachim. Mamish this case of Tnuli baili ikemanayi ve'chesura mechse b'hachitani. This is how we read inside. Amaris is isha, someone who marries a woman with erisim. Psula gai masayim amanamana. Be'mad varamurim. This is shitas Tanakama. The behihu. When he himself he says, I want to break off this erisim. Ava mesa. If she dies, then it depends. Malkum shenagul achs machzir. Malkum shenagul shulalachs ein machzir. V'dafka shemeis he. Shemeis he. Dafka when she dies. Ava meis who if he dies ein machzir. My timer because she has a time she could say. Yechayli shetimer tnuli baile ves mechimai. So this is shitas Tanakama. V'as Rabbi Yehuda Nasi l'meima be'emes amru bein meis hu vein meis he. It depends on the minhag. Malkum shenagul lahachzir machzirin. Malkum shenagul shalai lahachzir ein machzirin. Ve'loi matziamar tnuli baili ve'es machimai. So that's what we're trying to understand. That's a machlekes tanoim. We see that Rabbi Yehuda Nasi and Tanakama have a machlekes. If a person has a woman, a kala, can she say, I want my husband back or not? That Rabbi Yehuda Nasi says no, and Tanakama would say yeah. Then the Gemara says no. Like the kula almi chayla shetayma tnuli baili v'esach mimai. And Rabbi Yehuda Nasi agrees to this. That's when she has a taina of tnuli baili. V'demis who when he dies kula almi loy plig. It's not a machlekes Rabbi Yehuda Nasi and Tanakama. Where's the machlekes? Ki plig shemesa he. When she dies, v'hacha bekedushin litivuin nasnu nisnu kamiflagi and kipshuta tivuin. What's the when someone sinks? You sunk your money, you lost all your money. Same thing over here. When a person gets married, he gives $100, whatever he gives. That kedushin money in his head is gone. He'll never get it back. He sunk the money. It's called the tivuin nisnu kamiflagi. That what? Rabbi Nasan sava kedushin lav litivuin nitnu, and therefore I would get it back. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi savar kedushin is litivuin. Nisnu. Frekdemar v'makum How are you telling me has anything to do with Kedushin Lav or not? This clearly says when the Makim is to return it, we do give it back. So what is going on? The Gemara answers Hachi Kamar. Vesivlainais, regarding the Sivlainais, there he's maida that it's totally in the minig. What is Sivlainais? There's Mama's Masber, for example, cosmetics that you send to the Isha while she's engaged, whatever, engaged in halachic status. However, the Kedusha money that he holds is Vadai Litivuin. Hachi Kamar, Sivlainais Vadai Makum Shanagul Hachs Machzir, Vahani Tanoi, Kahani Tanoi. That what? The Tanya, Kitcha Bekikar. Now, Kikar, let's remember, Kikar is 2,500 zuz. Kikar, the person's Mekadesh Isha Bekikar. Bisula, Goyve Masayim, Balmana Divra Meir. A mayor holds, you get $2,500 plus the Ksuba money. So it's either 2,600 zuz or 2,700 zuz. Rabbi Yehuda Imeno, Bisula Goyve Masayim, Balmana Manu, Machazeres Leisa Shar. She either gets 200 or 100, therefore she has to return either 2,400 or 2,300, depending if she's a Besula or a Almana. Now, Rabbi Yossi, we're going to see this. We're going to be Maz Rabbi Yossi very well. Rabbi Yossi, Kitcha be'esrim, nice and lush leishach hatzoim. If the Kedushin money we're talking about is esrim shkolim is how much times 4 zuz. When you're Mekadesh Isha, let's give it with zuz number because we're going to see that we're going to be Maz Rabbi Yossi with zuz. It can make much more sense. That when Rabbi Yossi is Mekadesh Isha with 80 zuz, then you have to add another 15, another 15 shkolim, which is another 60 zuz. 15 times 4, because every shekel is a zuz. So if she got married in 80 zuz, you got to add another 60 zuz. And we're going to be masber why. Same thing, kitcha b'shleishim, 30 is 120. Nice and law, esrim chatzon, he has to give another 10 shekel, which is 40 zuz. So first Gemara's masber, we're going to be masber shitas Rabbi Yossi in a moment. So, but fraktimar, what are we talking about? She died, and there's no ksuba. Miyas ksuba. What's the havamina? What are you handling regarding ksuba? Elo shemeis who? You're going to tell me he died? Then amay machzer salois ashar. Why do you have to give back the money? Especially according to Rabbi Yehuda. Why? V'nema tenuli ba'ilubes mechimai. Elamai. We're going to be talking about be'eshes Yisrael shezinsa. So we're talking about Eish Yisrael shezinsa. Again, Fraktimah, what's the case of Eish Yisrael shezinsa? Ubemai, I beratzon miyas l'ksuba. We all know Isha's mizana beratzon, she loses a ksuba. Valley going to tell me who's ba'inus. Ba'inus not an issue if he's Eish Yisrael, that's nanas. Mishra sharyale. So what's the problem? Ve'ela, we have to be talking about Eish's kayin. We all know Eish's kayin, shenansa. The halach is, it's aser. We learn it from Asura Loy, that he loy nitpasa, yeshlach cheres, and it comes out to Eish's kayin. And what's the machlekes? So bekedushin letivu in nisnu kamifli. Therefore, what Rameir saw bekedushin letivu in nisnu. Therefore, you get the ksuba plus the 2,500 zuz, which is the kikar. So you ended up either with 2,700 or 2,600, depending on what. If you're amana or besula. Rabbi Yehuda savar lav letivu nisnu. Therefore, I gave you 2,500 zuz. I want back the money. So you just deduct your ksuba amount, which is either 200 or 100. Rabbi Yossi misafkale. Rabbi Yossi has a suffix. If what? I letivu nisnu iloi. The Helkach depends. Kitcha be'esrim, nice and la shleisha chatzon. Kitcha be'shleishim, nice and la esrim chatzon. So let's be masber what this means specifically. Now, Rabbi Yossi says as follows. I ba'atzim have a suffix if I hold Kiddushin is litivuin or not. So let's go back to the case. We said the case is talking about where you ended up being Mekadesher with, let's say, 20 zuz, 20 shkolim. The first case says you're Mekadesher with 20 shkolim. Now 20 shkolim is 80 zuz. 80 zuz, we have a suffix regarding the 80 zuz. What do you do with 80 zuz? And what is the suffix? 40 zuz. So let's say we're talking about almanim. 40 zuz, you're left with. You have 40 zuz in your pocket, 40 zuz you have to give back. Now the whole shayla is, there's the ksubas, how much is the ksuba? 100. We're talking about, let's say, 100. So in such a case, zak demar, noisim la, shleisha chatzayim, you have to give how much more? 15 times 4, you have to give another 60 zuz. Like that, we're going to end up equaling amount to the full amount of the ksuba. Same thing as the other way. Let's just be masber, because Mar is masber this case very clearly. It's the same thing when it was shleishim shekel. How much is shleishim shekel? It's 30. 30 times 4 is 120. Now, you divide into 2, because there's no shayla, you divide into 2. I get my 60. So 60 belongs to me. The other 60 is a suffix according to Rabbi Yossi. Now, how much is 100 minus 60? How much do you owe still? How much are you still owed? 40. And that thing was Rabbi Yossi. How much do you give? You give 10 shkolim. That's what the Gemara means, that you give another 10 shkolim, which is an equals. Interesting that Rabbi Yossi's case, just to bring out a little point, Rabbi Yossi's case is talking about very specifically his numbers only stem with the almana. I don't know why he picked that case. The typical case should be really a psula, which is 200. So again, Rabbi Yosef's case was talking about dafka 100. When you divide what you're mechuyev, since it's a savik kedushin money, all you have to do is subtract the division what you own, plus either another 40 in a scenario where you already have 60 biyadayim, or in the case where you have only 40 biyadayim, you have to add another 60 shkal. Dr. Mar Weiter, Amar Rav Yosef by Rav Yomi, Amar Rav Nachman. Every place where the minhag is to be machzir, we return it back. And the Rabbeinu Gershom is masber. What's it mean with Tirgemu Nardoi? What we're trying to say in the Brisa is that whenever you're not sure what the minhag is, for example, the shaila is, what is the minhag in New City? You have a store, all the mekaymis around it, there's no minhag. However, if the minhag in Muncie, Zok the Bryce, if the minhag in Muncie is to be machzir, then we follow the minhag the right next door. That's what it means. The Tigmur Nardai, Zok the Rabbeinu Gershom, Hein Stama Yoris, Im Smuchus La Nardai, that the halach is Tidan Kol Nardai Kamo, it's the Lashon Rabbeinu Gershom, that's what he's trying to say. Rav Nachman, we all know, he's from Nardai. So that's what he's trying to say, that you go follow the local minhag when you don't have the minhag, and that the Gemara asks, Shar Baba Mai. Zok the Rabbeinu Gershom, Klaimar Heich Nagin. How do we hold in such a case? What is the halacha in Bavel? And that we see Rabbi Rav Yosef Dami Tavayu, they both say, Mayhari Hadri, Kedusha Le Hadri. So Mayhari is what? Is the gifts that you give to the Kala. And the Rabbeinu and the Rashbam is Masber. Then Mayar is very similar to Kedushin, really. It's not similar to Sivlainus. Dr. Rashbam, 3 lines on the bottom. Yeshloim the Mayar. What is Mayar? Who mamin shemaktim le'ata, you write it now, b'mei erisin, she'akaisa b'ksubasa k'shetinasa live v'l'hachir mikri Mayar. Which is basically, you're giving in advance, whether money or presents, it's something that you're giving in advance. So regarding the mayar, you got to give back. But the kedushin money, loy hadri. Amra papa hilchasa bein shemesu, whether he dies. Bein shemesa he, whether she dies. Va'ada behu, the halach is as follows. Mayari, like we were masbers, hadri, kedushin loy hadri. Hadra bahi. If she dies, if she's chayzer, she says, you know what, I want to break off this marriage, afilu kedushin nami hadri. However, Amema says, no, even in such a case when she retracts, you don't give back the Kedusha money. Kedusha lehadri gzeira shamrik yaimru kedushin taisan ba'achleisa. That the halacha is, a person is not allowed to marry his sister of his wife even when they divorce her. So we're worried that what's going to happen is people are going to see you give back the money. They're going to say, oh, you never really married to her. They don't know that he gave a get, and therefore what? People are going to say you can marry the sister, and therefore it's a problem for other people exer. Now, to bring out one point, something's not adding up, which is, what are we worried about? We're worried about the husband marrying the sister? The husband himself knows he was married to the sister. So why in the world would he really have the gzeres? It's interesting, the Scheiner and Masber, because it's such a basic question, you have to go into this, the Scheiner and Masber, that we're worried that he's going to do an isser. He's going to go marry the achaysa. And what's going to happen is, other people are not going to know that it was be'isser. They're going to think it's beheter. And then if he goes and marries somebody else afterwards, they're going to say, what do you mean? If she does that, Chaysa goes and marries someone else, he's going to say, what do you mean? She's an Ashes Ish. The Kedusha was never Tafsi. And therefore, it's a very far-fetched Gzeira, L'chayra Muscarishan, understanding it's quite a far-fetched Gzeira, but that's what I wants to say, that Chayshis is such a Gzeira that the husband's going to go and marry the sister Be'isser, and people are going to think it was Taka Mutter. However, what do you mean? Everyone knows that he gave the get. On that, Father Rav Ashi, Lamaisa is Pedusi, it's a mistake. Why? Because the Ika, the Shama Baha, V'lo Shama Baha. That a lot of times you can hear about the Kedushin and not hear about the get. And again, you're going back, Libiyayim, to this far-fetched Gzeira. Zoktu Maravaita Sheshvinis Nigbis Bebezdin. We saw in the Mishnah very clear that part of this powerful concept of Sheshvinis is very hard. Muskar, the first time you do this daf, it's quite hard to understand. Sheshvinis has mamash halach of a chayiv, but we know that the Sheshvinis goes back to Bezdin. There are 5 different halachas regarding specifically with this concept of Sheshvinis. First of all, Nigbis Bebezdin, we said has the power of Hayalva. V'chayzeres ba'inasa, I'm only mechuyah to pay back the inah. the chayiv, when you get married, the Rashbam says, v'loi koydem, I'm not mechuyev beforehand. You can't even mon me. The guy wants his money back. Allah says you gotta wait till you get married. Ve'ein bo mishum ribbits, and the Gemara is going to be masber, why not, if you repay much more, and we're on kuf mem hey on Beis. Ve'ein ha-shvius mishamat, also, shvius does not eradicate the chayiv. I'm going to be masber, why? Very specific, only when the shvius was in between the stages of the first marriage of Ruvain and Shimon's marriage at a later time, but it went through Shemitah years. And the fifth halacha is the Eina Bechar Noito Ba Pishnayim. We're going to see in this scenario, like our Mishnah, that it goes back into the middle. Okay, we're on the 2 dots and Kuf Mem Hey on Beis. Let's go through this. Nikbis bebezdin. Why are these 5 halachas true? First of all, it goes back to bezdin. Why you could be mon. This chayvim bezdin my taimo kim milva damya. The way we look at it is mamish like a regular hava. Ve'ein ba mishum. More than that, and the Lashon Rabbeinu and the Lashon Rashbam is diladas kein avo. Let's be real. I never would have gave you a Scheiner matana. When I write that check, I expect to get a check back in return. Diladas kein avo sheyachzir lo b'inasim chasai. Therefore, it's considered mamish like avo. Ve'ein ba mishum ribis. Zok the lav adaita diyachiv yavlei. Why Dr. Rashbam? If I really want, I can give you back equal. Elamai. I'm more at a better financial space. I'm willing to give you a nicer present because it's coming from a hava, Dr. Ishbam. It's coming from friendship. It's not coming back from a regular hava. When a guy borrows $100, he gives back 110. It's all about the hava. But the whole concept, we have to remember, Sheshvinus as a concept as a whole is all matanis, really. That's why we're giving it. It's nothing to do with the hava, but it has the concept of hava. Ve'ena shvis, misha matasa, the like karina be la yigais. La yigais, we learned this already a few times, that shvius is only meshamet when you have to press the guy for a chayv. In the Rashbam, it tells you, both ma'as, but the case is talking about is no different than a 10-year loan. If a person lends the year before Shemitah for a 10-year loan, shvius is not meshamet because you're not mechuyev to repay back during the Shemitah year. Therefore, it doesn't have the halacha of la'yigais. Who are then over here? If Reuven got married in 2010 and Shemitah was 2011, and Shimon got married in 2015, since the year of Shemitah of 2011, there was no la'yigais, he wasn't pressing for the money, therefore, shvius is not meshamet. L'chari, you have to say, I'm thinking, that if the person got married during the Shemitah year, then maybe you have la'yigais. And therefore, maybe he's not mechuyet to pay back if he gets married during the Shemitah year. The fifth halacha, davele roi. We all know, ve'ena b'char, noitel, keberoi, kebemuchzak, like we already learned this earlier, in the sugyas of yesh, neichlin. Omer of Kahana, Klala Dishashvanisa. We're going to go through the Klalim, the basic understandings and rules that everyone accepts, that therefore you're going to have ramifications if you don't follow those. Which is, Hava b'masa. If you're in the town, you're in Muncie at the time, you should have gone to the Chasana. Shama Kol Tavla. Let's say you're in the outskirts of the town, so you didn't know about it, he wasn't able to tell you. Still, Shama Kol Tavla, and therefore what? You heard the bell. The bell is ringing, everyone knows it's Reuven's Chasana. You should have showed up. Let's say you didn't hear it, you're too far. Then Reuven should have told you, listen, I'm very happy you came to my chasna. Reuven tells Shimon, now it's time to come back to my chasna. But Shimon says, you didn't let me know about your chasna. I didn't know about it. So Zok the Gemara, Ein Chanami, Teraimis Islay. He asked Teraimis, you should have told me about the chasna, but still, Shalume Mishalim. You have to pay back the shishvinis. Fact, the marva atkama. Lemaisa, how much could I deduct? Because if I would have gone to the chasna, we're going to see in a moment. If I would have gone to the chasna, you would have fed me food, and that food costs money. So I'm abaye nagu b'nega no, which is the minhag of what we call like the groomsman. Ad zuzah. He takes in his hand up the zuz, and he eats it. The point is, he could deduct a zuz. So let's say he gave him a shekel worth. The halach is he only has to give him 3 zuz, not 4 zuz, because he didn't show up to the chasna, and he had a taina that you should have invited me. You should have let me know. Adar ba mishalem palka. The same halacha is if a person's chayav 4 zuz, he only has to pay half. And the Rashbam is masber that the way it worked was each one gave per his chashivas. So if you gave me a Scheiner matana, now that was up to your chas, I didn't give the chicken, I gave the meat. And it went on and on and on, and they went on all the meat boards and all the mishagasim. Okay, mikan ve'elach, inish kechshavusei. The mamish went all out for the person that gave a beautiful sheshvinin at his time. Turn her abana. Also, imay bepumbi. Bepumbi is a geschmack chasna berabim. Everyone was invited. It was a very festive chasna. Ubika shlasas imay betzina. He wants to do it betzina. The Rashbam says two options. Either it was an eighth sarah, it wasn't a good time for Klai Yisrael, so they want to do the undercover chasna. Or the Rashbam's other malach is that he wants to save money, save a few dollars, so therefore he wants to make a very small chasna in a local shul, etc. The halach is, I made a Scheiner chasna. You want me to pay you back? No problem. Make also a nice, beautiful chasna. Also, ima bebesula. He got married to Besula. Vika shlassis ima ba'mana. Again, he has tainis yachalai milai besula esa imcha kederch shasisi imi. A third mahal, another concept we can find is asami b'shniya. It's a second marriage. Vika shlassis ima birishayna yachalai milai. When you get married again, come back to me. It was a second marriage. It's a very interesting taina because, if anything, the Besula was more of a fest. The cheshetisa isha cheres esa imcha asima ba'achas, and he's marrying two ladies. Vika shlassis ima b'shtayim yachalai milai ba'achas esa imcha kederech shasisa imi. Okay, now we're going to go a little into Agat the Gemaras until the Mishnah Kuf Memvav. So let's see this. Taner Rabbanan. Atir nichsin, someone who's rich in a chasim. Atir pumbi. Which means to say, someone who has a lot of the chasim, the Rashbam says he has a bunch of fields and krumim and everything. Then, he has atir pumbi. He's like someone who has a lot of behemoths. Why? Because everyone knows about it. Who is this? It's more Agat the Gemara. Zehu Baal HaGodis. What's a Baal HaGodis? It's somebody who gives his drushes once in a while. Comes Yom Tov, everyone packs the shul for the Shabbos. A Gadol drasha. So again, everyone Vakol Nesaf in the Shmoya, everyone gathers to listen, and everyone sees his chachma, and everything's gully. Atir Slime, someone who's rich in coins. Atir Tekua. So the Rashbam gives two ma'achim, but on a kapshutai, if someone has a lot of coins, he also has full of oil from Tekua. Some want to say it's houses, but the Rashbam wants to say it means a place at Tekua, the oil over there. Who's this? Zeu Baal Pilpul. It's someone also that's able, just like the coins it goes through, so too someone is mepalpul. He goes back and forth, and he knows his stuff. Atir Mishach, someone who's good with measurements. Atir Kamas is also good he's rich with storage. Who is this? Zehu Baal Shmuis. That when you ask him stuff, he suddenly hear how much stuff he knows. Hakol, and the Gemara fears always that Gat the Gemara called Tzrichin Lemari Chitaya. Everyone needs the horn of the wheats. Who's that? That's the Gemara. It says in the pasuk, Kol Yemei. It's a pasuk in Mishlei. It says, Kol Yemei Ani Ra'im. All the days of Ani is bad. Zehu Baal Talmud. Why? Because he has to schwitz to really understand Gemaras. V'toiv lei Mishnah Talmud. It's about Mishnah. It's very easy to learn Mishnayos every day. Rav Amma Punk Fakert. Ifcha. Guy who learns Mishnayos is really vague. He doesn't really know what's going on. Someone who learns the Gemara understands the Mishnayos much better because he went through everything. Therefore, if anything, he's the Toiv Leiv Mishnah. He's the Toiv Leiv Mishnah Talmud. My Dechsev, what's the pasuk say? It says in the pasuk, Masiya Avonim Yatzabam. Someone who carries these stones, he's going to get tired. He's going to get weary from them. But Kei Eitzim, however, someone who chops wood, Yisachin. Bam, he gets warm with this. He gets warm with his work that he's able to chop the stones. What's that mean? Masiya Avonim Yatzabam Elu Baalei Mishnah. It's someone again who's a Baalei Mishnah that he only has a tsar. Because he doesn't know how to really explain it. However, but he's able to go through everything. Who's that? He has a very bad wife. Someone who's he's an istinus, very picky, figgity person. Takes very hard to bother him. Nothing really bothers him so quickly. Someone who's a Rachmanis v'toiv leiv, mishte tamiz zeu achzori. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi ayim ekoymi anim roim zeh shedaitik ksara. He's a stingy person. He's a captain. V'toiv mishte tamid zeu shedaitai rechava. He's very generous. One kuf men vavam and off the top of the helmet. V'am Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi koymi anim roim. How could that be? V'ayika Shabbos v'yom tovim. Nothing like Shabbos and Yom Tov. On that Kiddush Shmuel, the Gemara answers, Dama Shmuel, Shinoi Vesas, Chilas, Chayli. If someone changes from a schedule, it's very easy for him to come sick. Huadin, suddenly comes Shabbos, and he's eating all these Geshmaka foods, he gets sick from this. Ksiv, it says, Besefer Ben Sira. What's it say? Kol Yemei Ani Roim. When it says Kol Yemei Ani Roim Ben Sira, Af Leila, it's not just the days. Why? Because this Ani, Bishval Gagim Gagoy, his house, his base of his house is all the way on the rooftops, and therefore what? Mimatar Gagim Lagagoy, all the rain ends up going down. Baraim Harim Karmai, the person's vineyard, where's that? All the way on top of the mountain. Therefore what? Me'afar Karmai Kramim, all his good soil ends up going all the way down the mountain, and it goes back to all the Gvirim that have nice vineyards over there. Okay, we're on the mission over there. Someone who sends his shver. Nice, he gets to his kal. He's sending all these beautiful siv linus. Again, like we explained, this was the minhag of the chasanim to send all these stuff. And sometimes you ate there. So shalach sham mea money, you sent a massive amount, even 100 money. And you ate their taka for a suda, filo dinner. It doesn't make a difference, even if it was only a dinner. Einon nigvin. If he dies or she dies, the halach is you don't get it back. However, if you did not eat a meal there, hare elu nigvin, then you could get back your money. Shalach sivloinis mirubin. She asks her email the Beis bailo. In the case he's talking about, he's very clear. He says, I want you to return it back to the house. The Rabbi says, who didn't mean it? Just orcha the milsa, you would ask that when it's merubin. Hare elu nigvin. Sivloinis muatin shetishtamesh bein b'meisaviyah. The small stuff we're going to see in the Gemara exactly what it is. Ein nigvin, then he doesn't get it back. Zok the Gemara, Amarava, dafka dinner. Have a pachis medinner loy. If he ate less than a dinner, he doesn't get it back. Then he has a right to demand it back. For the Gemara, Pshita says in the Mishnah, dinner tanan. So it says, as long as I ate a dinner, I don't get it back. But if I ate less than a dinner, I should get it back. The Gemara answers, no. You know why it says dinner? That's a normal way of talking. I diktani dinner, the milsaktani, kamash malon, that what, dafka dinner, anything less, I have a right to get it back. Now, we said in the Mishnah, it says achal, it says ate, achal tanas. So the question is, what if you just came, shasamai, you drank, who? It says who in the Mishnah? Who tanan? Shluchei mai. What if it says shliach? It says achal sham, shalach sham tanan. Shagalei mai. What happens if the shver sends back the meal? So Tashma, let's bring a raya. There was a ma'aser shoyu, ma'aser v'adam echad. Sheshagal the Beis Chaim meir koyin shakadi yain 100 carriages, carrot. Shakadi yam shakadi shem shaklei kesef with silver shaklei zav shaklei milas. All these wools, all these geshmaka stuff. And rachav some chasai. The young gvir she'edim pulls up. V'halach v'amar al pesach Beis Chaim. So the shver pulls out this nice mulled wine, this wine v'shas. He drinks the wine umeis, and he dies on the he dies in the mamish on the driveway. So what happened was the shaila is does the shver have to get back all these matanas or not? And then what happened was v'zu aloch elar b'achas arbir l'fnei chacham le'usha v'amru. They said this if it's something that's very normal for it to get used up, a nigvin. Nigvin. What do you see from there? What do we see from the Maisa? All he did was drink a cup of wine. Shma mina, afilu sasya. Shamis mina, the Zoktamara. Afilu pachis medina. L'chayri, clearly, we're not really thinking that this cup of wine costed that much money. On that, Zoktamara, Amar Avashi, no. Man leiman lon mechatesi. Maybe we're talking about, again, we're talking about someone on a very high level. This guy is an Adam, he's a young age, and he's able to send the shver so many stuff. I'm sure the shidduch made sense. The shver was also a gvir. And what happened was, what did the shver do? Maybe the shver taket, they took these pearls, they grinded it up. We have this, and you hear this sometimes they have these restaurants, these gold-plated desserts with the gold stuff. You took this pearl, it's worth 1,000 zuz, and you grind it up into the wine. So mechatesi seos pachos mid dinner. Shamis mina filu shagrulai. Another right you could bring is even he sent it because it wasn't in the house yet. Gemara says no. Dilma, the driveway is different. Kol petzlik beis chamiv is kebeis chamiv dami. Zoktimari bayilahu mau sheyishalish. What is the halacha if can you split it up? Basically, can you have a taina if you ended up only getting a third of it, let's say, or half of it, v'chulei, maybe you should only have to return. If you only ate a chetzi dinner, maybe I'll get my chetzi sivloinais back, or the shlish or revia. Another shaila would be, is shvach sivloinis mao? What happens? You gave the animal, now gave birth, etc. Do we say, what's the shaila? Kiv on the isnu ledidei had yirushu shavuach. Since if it would be there, you got to give it back. Or no. Since we know if it gets stolen, keeping the avdi or mignavi, if it gets stolen, the laws by shalumalei b'rishus ledidei shavuach. Therefore, it's considered in the rishus of the kala. Therefore, the maisa we come out with the tekun and maitzim chaveiroi olav arai. Bai Rava has another shayla sivloinais hasuyin libalois v'loi balu. The presents were supposed to get used up, and the mice you didn't use it up. Very normal enough. A perfume bottle. You could use it up if you use it a lot, but it didn't get used up. Tashma v'zol lachel arbachas harbiyot v'nechacham b'ushav v'amru. They said as follows: Sivloinais hasuyin libalos ein nikvin v'she'ein hasuyin libalos nikvin. My love, don't we understand? Avigad delay balu. So therefore, even though it's like balu, you got to give it back. And that more answers loy. The balu we're talking about, the taka was used up. Tashma, try to bring around another right. Sivloinais mu'atin shetish tamish ben. You have these few sivloin, the small sivloinis. V'hi bebeis aviyah. Ein nikvin. So you see, you don't give it back. So it's a raya then you don't have to return it. And that the more answers to Rava. No, we're talking about very specific, very inexpensive items. B'yava v'sivachasal, which is meaning tififim, b'kshur nashim, whether it's nets, these caps, hair nets, whatever they are, it's something that's very cheap that everyone is Michael, Mashenkin, real tachshitin, that you have a tzad to say that a person is not Michael. Amri with Amarav. Ma'isabadam echosh, sheshagal lebeis chamav, yayin, chadash, nice new wine, v'shem chadash, v'lik, v'kli, pishton, chadash, ba'atzeres, and shvus. In fact, Gemara, very nice. Well, why should we clap? My kamash mon. What are you coming to tell us that you gave us on Shavuos that he sent this shver? Gemara gives two answers. Even same was shown us the Chashibusa Eretz Yisrael that already in Shavuos time he was able to send the Yain and Shemen Chadash. Even same the Tain Tanasi Taina that if he gave it we could believe it, and the reason why he could believe it because it's very possible that he already had taka new wine and new oil. Amr Yehuda Amr Ma'isabadam Echad Shamr Lo Yishtoi. Taisaranasi. He heard there was a rumor that his wife was not able to smell, so he wanted to check her out. And we all know, and Rabbeinu Gershom, his last line says, She'enim Mariach Shum Rech Umum Shebeseser. He explains, since it's a Mum Shebesesu, Mutu Legarsha. Therefore, he had a right to divorce her. So we're talking about the guy wants to smell. Let's do a smell test. Mamish, the literal word, smell test. We're going to see Dafka was why was the meaning was a taka chorva. Levaitka, he wants to check her. So Amar La Reach Tznoin Ani Mariach Begalo. He says, I smell the reach of a radish. He wants to say, so Rishban gives two mahalchim. One mahalch is he hid a radish taka in his beget. Now it's Tznoin Shebetech Amar. And another thing, another mahal he brings down, what happened was he really had a date with him, and he wanted to see if he says, I smell a radish, she should answer back. What do you mean? I smell a date, because it was sitting in his pocket. On that we see, we're going to Kufna and Vavam Beis, Amr Lei, she already chopped on right away what's going on. I guess Shitaka couldn't smell. And he says, mine yavlam because savas diricha v'cham lebeit. Someone should give me taka some dates. They're sweet, and you could eat it with the radish. It was something that you ate together to take off the sourness. And what happened was, Nafal alel churva umesa. And what happened was, taka that time, next thing you know, after she answered the ba'if and schayik, she taka died. So the shaila is, did she really, what happened in such a scenario? Is he Yerush or not? The shaila would be maybe since he only checked it to be baitka, and therefore he wanted to divorce her. In such a case, if someone wants to divorce his wife, someone who has das divorced his wife, shuv any yarsha. And therefore, we don't know in such a halacha what taka happens. Since he only came taka to check her, mesa and yarsha, and he's taka not going to be yarsha. Sivlainais mu'atin shetishtamish mahan eina yarsha. Sivlainais mu'atin shetishtamish mahan beis aviv v'chul. Yosef Rabin Saba can make their pup of Yosef Karm, and he says as follows: Bein shemesa he, whether she dies. Bein shemesa who, whether he dies. Hadar, whether he retracts from the kedushin. Sivlainais hadri, the sivlainais you got to get back. However, Michael Mishta, the food which is normal, loy hadri, all the fruit platters that he gave every Shabbos, that about you don't have to get back. Hadra by he, if she decides to cancel the marriage, then what? Hadra filo kisha the arka, even a bunch of vegetables you have to get back. However, Amar Avhuna B'Dei V'Shua, now all the fruit platters you start pulling out of the receipts, zokt. Rav Huna, that avadi you don't have to give back a full amount. V'shamalan may basa bezol, ad kama bezol is ad tilsa. It's only 2/3. Like we all know, we have this concept very much often in Baba Kama. Whenever you do certain stuff, you don't have to give back full price. You can tell I never would have ate these fruit platters. Therefore, I only have to give back 2/3. Okay, Zok the Mishnah. Shchimra shekasav kol nechasav. Now we're going to go back extensively into the halachas of a matana of a shchimra. Shchimra shekasav kol nechasav la'acherim v'shir karka kol shuhu. The halacha is matanase kayemes. Lo shir karka kol shuhu ein matanase kayemes. And we're going to see why. And to give a few quick agdamas of a shchimra. We all know the mile of a shchimra is that it works without a kinyan. A bari you need a kinyan, shchimra you don't need a kinyan. And one of the main reasons is that we are worried that a shchimra, he's dying, and if he knows he needs to do a kinyan, it's going to bring his death much closer. Therefore, we were misakin. We're going to see it in the Gemara. Is going to discuss if it's we have mekaris from daraisa, mekaris derabanan, but we're going to be misakin that it works without a kinyan like that. We don't want to make his death come quicker. So that's the concept. Doesn't need a kinyan, and It's a kipshuto, a takana d'Rabbanan. However, another point is, we see from our Mishnah, that we evaluate. If a person's dying, he gives over 100% his nechasim, we understand he's given over everything. Therefore, if he recovers, the halacha would be is that he could get it back. However, if he left over something, we say, why in the world did you leave over something? Elamai, you were chayshish, you might recover. Therefore, you don't get back all the matanis you gave it. So Zaktamar right away. Man tana das lina basar umdana. We evaluate, right? We're looking into you. We're trying to figure out your mind. If you give over all your nechasim, or you don't give all your nechasim, we're saying it's totally if you had das that you were thinking about recovery or not. Zaktamar, Rav Nachman, you know who this is? Our Mishnah. It's Reb Shimon ben Nasi the Tanya. We have a Mishnah. Bryce says as follows: Arei shalach b'noi l'medina sayam. A person, his son went to a different country, and he heard the son has died, and he went, he got up, and he wrote all his nechasim l'achar. His son pulls up, what's the halacha? Matana. We don't say, Tanakama says, we don't say, oh, your whole das is given away because you thought your son died. However, Reb Shimon Ashi, no. Ein matanos matana. If he would have known his son died, he never would have gave it to this random person, whoever it was. So that's one mahalach. Rav Sheshes wants to say, you know this Mishnah is. Rav Sheshes Amar, it's Rav Shimon Shezuri. The Tanya, whoever Beis says, Bari Scheiner, you in the beginning they would say, Hayaytze bekoiler, it's a lashon collar even, an iron collar, the iron is going lemisa. And he says, Rabbi said, kiss will get lishti, right to get for my wife. Even though he didn't explicitly say that I want to do an asina, we still give it, because that's what he says das was. Someone who's leaving town, someone who's leaving war, whatever it is. Reb Shimon Shezuri Aimer Afam Asukin, which is our Mishnah, someone, even somebody that's dying. So it really comes out that when Reb Shimon says it's Reb Shezuri, it's not Dafka Reb Shezuri, rather it's everyone in that Brisa that says this halacha is that we go Basra Umdana. Why did Rav Nachman come on to say to Shimon Asher? Why couldn't he bring a bomb raya from the case in Gittin? More answer, Shani Yasem, the Amar Kisfu. The case of Gittin is very clear. The case is going, but the guy's leaving to Misa. He says, go write it. When a person says Kisfu, there's no Shaila, Gali, Daita, Zakter Shmam, Sheroitze, Lasses, Get. And he was very nervous. He's dying. He's not thinking about saying to give it. Frakti Mara. So why do you have a Shmaka case from Shimon Asya? Mar answers, Umdana, the Muchach, Shani. He was very clear from him that he was very clear from him that as long as son was alive, he didn't give over anything. And more than that, he says by Chayle, this is the first time you see this, Kivon, the Roiv Chaylin are Lechayim. Vulait Siva Machmas Misa. He wasn't explicit, he said it's Machmas Misa, therefore, Leka Umdana Kula Haiz, the Lashon Erishbam. Man Tanalad, the Tana Rabban Aresha Chayle, son who's dying in Mutamamita. And they ask him, who are you planning on giving over your Nechasim, Varmalahen? One Kuf Mem Zainam and Alf Top of the Alman, Doimish Yeshli Ben. He says, I always knew I had a son. V'achshav, what should I do? He gives a krach, Sheinli Ben, Nechasim, and I give my Nechasim to Pliny. Another case was with the Isha. Who are you giving your Nechasim to? I always knew Sheish to Mubaras. My wife used to be pregnant. Achshav Sheish to Mubaras. Nechasim is going to go to Pliny. V'nai Delamaisa was wrong news. V'yeshli Ben. He might say had a son was alive. I Sheish to Mubaras. It wasn't an afil. That was a healthy baby. The halach is ein matanas matana. So let's try to say, Leima, Dafka, who is this? Reb Shimon ben Nasi, Veloy Rabbanon. Because Rabbanon doesn't go Basra Umdana. And that Gemara says, no. Afilu Teim Rabbanon. Rabbanon is giving me more than that specific case. You know why? Doi Meshani. He mamish said, if only I would have had my baby, if my wife wouldn't have had a miscarriage, v'chadayma. Mara asks, the Karla, my Karla. What's your having otherwise? Mara says, no. Mao de Teima. Kamash Malon, that we say it's not just Sar, rather it's more than that. Dafka, he's saying that to show us because he thought he didn't have a son, and more than that, there's Bamas Maz, but the Havmin is you give a krechs, reminding you that you didn't have a son. So therefore, krechs is not going to help, it's just remembering bad memories, and therefore, the Havmin would say it's not going to help. Kamash Malon does help. Now we're going to discuss 4 different Mekayers, 2 from the Torah, and 2 we're going to see from Nach. Like it says in the pasuk, we learned this in Yeshnechlin extensively. Should have just said ishki yamusuv ein loy nachalasa libitay. And vavartim is a yiser lashon. That what to tell us, what type of avar works like Yerusha, you just give it. It's a matna shchimera. That what? We all know a matna shchimera works like Yerusha, just like Yerusha does not need a maisa kinyan. Hu adin, this matna shchimera is not going to need a kinyan. That's one mahalach. That's Rav Nachman Amar Rav Mahacha. He learns it from Lashon of the Torah of an Esatim es nachalasi la'achiv. That again, Esatim is extra yishchan esina acher shikazu. What type of Esina works like Yerusha ve'ezizu zumat neshchimra? Frak the Rav Nachman. Why didn't he learn it from Avartim? Why did he have to come on to Nesatim? I tell him Avartim. More answers. He needed for something else. Rabbi the Tanya, like we learned early in the beginning of Yishneichel and Mamish, the beginning. The Rabbi Amakul and Emma Esina. We all know how he could change Shvatim, how she got married, because there was brothers, Rosh Hashanah was Mazma over there. And then the brothers died, ends up going to a different Shevet, Elabas, Hoylub Nabaylim, Yarshin, Isa. Therefore, we need Vavartim for that concept. Frak Demara, Rav Zera, my Taima, Loy Amar Benesatim. Why did Rav Zera Taka come on to Vavartim? Same in Asatim. Our answer is Urcha the Crow. It's very normal to say a verb. He gave it. You could argue, but you can't tell me, Zok, Rav Zera, that it's a Yisr Lashon, rather it's Urcha the Torah to talk such a sprach. So far we have two from the Torah. Rabbi Nashaber Yirmiyah Amar Bahacha. We're going to find this from a pasuk in Melachim. It says, "Bayamim Ahem." Those days, Chalach Chizkiyahu Lamus. He was dying. Vayavo Elav Yeshayav and Amoitz Hanavi Vayayim Elav. Koyam Hashem. Sav Levesecha. This is the underline, and this is the Makar. It says, "Go command your household." What are you going to give it? Why? Ki Meis Atav Eloi Sichya. You're not going to live. So again, what do we see? B'Tzaval Ba'ama. All he did was Sav Levesecha. Go tell your kindlach. Rabbi Reches Gama Hacha. V'Achisayfo Ra'ah. We all know with Achisayfel. Who was he? He was David HaMelech's advisor. Now what happened was, he sided with Avshalom. They were able to knock out David HaMelech from Yerushalayim. And what happened was, Achisayfel tells Avshalom, go pounce while the iron's hot. Go right now, kill David. If you're going to wait till he recovers, he's going to end up beating you. And what happened was, Avshalom did not listen to him. The second he's chapped, that he's not listening to his eitzes, he knew he's dead meat. And he realized that's it. David HaMelech is going to be Menatzech and he's going to die. And you know what he did? He did suicide. He hung himself, like the pasuk says. So let's see this inside. But before he killed himself, when he chat is either way gone, he went quickly to his house to give over the Yerusha. So let's see the pasuk inside. It's Kishmak, it's Shmuel Beis. Ayin Sham Barichas. V'achisayfer Raki Loi Nesesat Sasai. That Avshalom didn't listen to his eitzah to kill David. And what happened was he gets on his donkey, and he goes to his house, Vayitzav. Underline that word. We see again, Sav Ba'am, Vayitzav is Beisai, Vayechanoik. And he choked himself, he strangled himself, Vayamas Vayikaver, Bekaver Aviv. Again, we see over there, Vayechanak Betzavo Ba'am. Also over there, we see without a Matna Shchimera, it's good enough with a Tzavo without a kingdom. So far we have four Mekayers. Ve'vartem, Nesatem, we have from Chizkiyahu, and we have Achisayfel over there, both cases with Tzavo Ba'am. Turn about Shloisha Dvarim Tziva Achisayfel's Banav. He gave three things before he died. He said, Al Tuba Mechlekes. First of all, never argue. Val Timur Duba Malchus Beis David. He realized what happened. Look at himself. He was murdered Beis David. He ended up having to kill himself. V'yantav, this we're going to go through right now. Got the Gemaras of V'yantav Shalat Seres. If Shavuot says, what bar, if it's clear, then Zarichitim, go plant wheat. Mazutra Amano, Balu Litmar, even if it's cloudy. Amin Adam Shmeder Yaakov, Loi Bar Mamish, not if it's clear Mamish. If Loi Balu Mamish, not if it's cloudy. Filu Balu, even when it's cloudy. Veruach Tzefinis, if there's a northern wind, Menashavata is blowing, Zeu Bar. Why? Because the wind's going to come, Shemefazeres says Avim. Amler of Acha, Amler of Abler of Ashi, Anana of Yitzchak Ber of Dimi Masnisala, Damar of Yitzchak Ber of Dimi, that Maitzi Yomtav Acha Shachag, Maitzi Yomtav on Sukkos, Hakol Tzaif, and everyone look up Lashon HaMaracha, see where the winds, how the smoke is blowing. If it's not the klap itself, and if it's going towards north, let's focus, it's towards north, it means the wind's coming from the south. And then the Aniyim would be happy. Smeichem balibatim at you know why? That year it's going to be merubin. Upairs, you're going to have an overload of rain. Markivan, and it goes quickly, and therefore the prices collapse and it goes very low. Not the klape darm if it's going towards the south. That means it's a northern wind. Aniyim are very upset at saving balibatim sneichem because b'nei shegish mishanim wa'atin upairs mishtamrim, and therefore you could charge a lot of money. So the Hashem were happy. Not the klape mizrach. It's going from the west to the east. So it's very clear. We have to focus on the what winds from the west. Hakol smeichin. So this price clearly says winds from the west. Everybody's happy. Klape ma'ariv hakol tzevin. But if it's going towards the east, that means winds So it's coming from the east because it's going towards the west. Everyone's upset. Correct, tomorrow. We clearly told us that what winds from the west. Everybody's happy. Or meaning mizrachis winds from the east. Lailam yafim ma'ravis lailam kasha mamash astira. One Brisa says winds from the west are good. One Brisa says winds from the west are bad. And the Brisa continues. Ruach tzafainis yafil achitim. If it's a northern wind, it's good for the wheat. B'shah sheviu shlish. Only when it's ready, mature to third. The kashal is asim. It's bad for the oil. B'shah Sheinitzu, when it's blossoming, v'ruach draimis from the south, and right away we saw the simon already at the end of the second parak. To remember this, that what? Shulchan is betzafin. In the Beis of Mikdash, where was the Shulchan? Shulchan had the lechem upon it, has wheat, is in the north, umin naira badarim, like that you can remember the simon. That tzvainis from the north is good for the chitim. And shemen, zayis, that we do from the menorah, you were leaking in the south, that the drymis, and you remember the simon is that the drymis is good for the oil. And the menorah and the shemen, each one, the lechem upon him, they're all cultivated on their own. So again, we have a bomb kasha. We have one Brisa that says the winds from the west is good. One Brisa that says the winds from the west are bad. What is going on? The answer is like kasha. Halon, the second Brisa is talking about in Eretzav, halahu. The Hainu Halon in Bavel, we're talking about that what? Where it's very wet the ground. We don't want rain so much. If anything, rain's not going to help. Therefore, the winds from the west are bad because we don't want rain. Mashenke in Eretz Yisrael, where you need rain, winds from the west are good because that means it's going to be a rainy season. Like the Rashbam says, B'nei Eretz Yisrael she'artzim gavoya, since the Berharv Yitzrichin lemotor harb. Let's continue that God to Gemaras. Tanya. The day of Shavuos, Barer, if it's clear, Simin Yavel Chol Shana Kula. Amra Zvid, Hayay Makama the Reishaita. The first day, what we call Rosh Hashanah, the first of the year. Ichamim Kula Shata Chamima. If it's hot on Rosh Hashanah, the whole entire year is going to be hot. Ikar Kula Shata Career. If it's going to be cold, the whole year is going to be cold. Frektamar, who cares? Lamaynaf Kamine. Amar answers one Kufim Zainam Beis. Let Tfilasu Shel Kain Gadol. That the Kain Gadol takes his mazmir. The Kain Gadol would daven. He had an opportunity to daven for the year. So if he knew it was going to be a hot year, he davened that it shouldn't be too hot. If Rosh Hashanah was cold, he davened Yom Kippur that the year should not be too cold. Now we're going to go back to Adkan Gata. Now we're going to go back into the Gemara of more of Shchimera. V'Rav Amar Rav Nachman Matna Shchimera is Medrabona Balmi. We saw Psukim Vavartim and Snatim B'chulei. We learned on Amar Al Psukim. The Rashbam says you have to say it's Eitz Atayva Kamash One, that you should divide your money. Use common sense. When a person's dying, he should make sure to give over all his stuff before he goes. And the reason why is, so why do we do a Matna Shchimera? The concept is that it works without a kinyan. Shema Tidarev Daita Olav, and the Rashbam says something very fascinating. He says, Shuyadeya Shilayikaimu Banav Litzavasai. Dainu, wait a second. Why do we need a Matna Shchimera? Just tell your kids what to do and they'll make a kinyan. Zok the Rashbam, he's nervous. You know what he's nervous? That his sons are not going to listen to him. Therefore, we're worried that it's going to bring his death much closer. In such a case, we say, even without a kinyan, we were masakin that it works. Even though Shmuel says as follows, you tell me that what? You tell me it's Darabana, not Madaraisa? Is this really true? We're trying to bring a kasha that it's only Madarabana, and it says, that means to say is, you're holding a star in your hands that says Reuven owes Shimon $100, and you went and gave this star to Shimon. The halach is, you can mess him over by being Michael. There's a shayla, maybe to give it back. I ain't Taisa Barichis if you have to give it back. Grama, Garmi, we're not going to go into this. There's a shayla b'chal, how, if you have to repay him. But the concept is, I'm able to be Michael. And the reason is very simple. Because when you give over a star to Reuven, the star itself just says you owe the money. But where is the money? Who's really owe the money is you. You're just giving him paper. Therefore, you can give him the paper from today till tomorrow, but you can be Michael. However, we're going to see, Vafilu Yarish Michael. Not only that, even the Yarish of the person that the father gave it over a star, he could say, you know what, I'm Michael the Chayf. However, Maidah Shmuel, this is the kasha. Shem Nasna bim Matna Shchimera, as a Matna Shchimera you went and gave over to Reuven the star that says someone owes you money. The Eni Yachal Michael. So Frekti Mari, Iamr Bishlam Adaraisa. If the concept of a Matna Shchimera works with the Raisa, we can understand. Bishum Hachi Eni Yachal Lemcho, because it's a Daraisa account, it's like a Yerusha. That the Chayv Mamish went to this recipient. Eliyamat, that's only Darbanan, Iyamai Eni Yachal Lemcho. How could you say that he can't be Michael? It's only Darbanan, you're giving over the star. And my answer is no. You're right. However, we made it so powerful This takana, because you have to remember, we're worried about pikuach nefesh. We're worried about shemet titar daita zakter shman. Therefore, what? Va'asua kilshel tayr. Amar Rav. Nachman. Rabbi wants to say in the name of Nachman, Shchivmara Shamar Shchivmara that's dying. He says as follows: Yader Pliny Bebayizet. This is his lashon. I want Reuven to live in this house, or Yaicha Pliny Peres Dekel. I want Shimon to eat my fruit of the dekel tree. The halach is loy amar klum. And the reason why he did not say anything, because he didn't give him anything that has mamashas. The way it works out when a person wants to give over a peres dekel, in essence, he's giving over shareholders, giving over stocks in the tree, and therefore you have a schus to use the peres. But there's no such thing as giving over just peres to somebody that is a davar she'em mamish, it's a davar shalei b'laylam. Everyone agrees it doesn't work. However, I'm giving over schusim in the house. That what's his schusim? V'yadabai, that he can live there. So that he's giving him shears in the tree that he can have it for the pears. So, Frektamar right away, remember the summer of Nachman Dafka. You're telling me Milsa, the Isa B'Bari. This whole concept only works by a Bari. Therefore, Isa B'Shchimra, the Lesser Bar, Lesser B'Shchimra. The Hainu, we're equating a Bari and a Shchimra, the exact same halachas. One difference. Shchimra does not need a kinyan and a Bari needs a kinyan. But anything else does not work. Frektamar Rav Nachman. We find there is such a case where Shchimra is more powerful than a Bari, not just in kinyan. One kuf mem chesem and alf top of the helmet. Shchimra sha'amar tnu halvasi leplani. The alvasa goes leplani. The avgad the lesser bari. There's no such a thing as a bari walking over and handing over a milvahal peh. Because a milvahal peh, since it's like tzonitna, which means to say the money's really gone. It's not. There's nothing you're really holding on to. There's no kinyan. You can't do. There's no kinyan typhus in anything. Therefore, by bari it does not work. Even with the kinyan, it can't help. And we see by shchimra you could do such a thing. Elamai shchimra is more powerful than a bari, not just by a kinyan. Rav Papa says it's chaluk. Rav Papa amhayil v'yirish yarsha. It's a little different because the way we equate a shchimra is more into a yirish. We don't turn you into a bari. If a yirish can have such a concept, who adin a shchimra could do that? That's what we learned. V'avartim, more than that, we saw in Amud Aleph. V'avartim is nachlas lebita. Unesatem, that we find the concept that what? That a shchimra is no different than a yirish has those powers to give over Yerusha. Rav Achmed der Vika Amar halva isa b'bari. No, you're wrong. There is such a concept. You could do such a thing. Which means to say is, you have all three parties involved, which you're going to see in a moment, the Ma'aseh Shahaya. You have Reuven, Shimon, and Levi. Reuven over Shimon, to Levi, what you could do is, if everyone's there, he could just basically say, give over the chayv that I owe to Shimon, or Shimon says, you owe me the money, give over directly to Levi. So one of the things that are hilchos of a taima works, so too we can have it by a bari. Therefore, it works such a ma'aseh of a ma'imid shlosh. Iboilu. Now we're going to have a shayla. What's the halacha? Dekel la'echad u'peiraisav la'acher ma'u. Do we say mi shayir makim peri or loy shayir? The hainu, we just learned that there's no such a thing as giving over something that's davar shaloi b'loylam or davar she'im b'mamish. So you can't give over pairs. However, we have a tzad to say when a person gives over a dekel tree. So he says, I want dekel to go to Reuven, but I want you, Shimon, to get the pairs. The shayla, what he wants to say, Taisus works with a better lashon. The Taisus is masber that really what you're leaving over is, you're saying, I want the malkum of tzimuach of the peiros should go to you, to the sheni, and therefore the sheni is taka getting a davar sheyesh by mamish. The Rashbam has a whole different mahalach. It's quite extensive, but working a very simple mahalach of taisis that the shaila is malkum tzimuach ha peiros enat. So Zaktim more intim salaim la'achaloy have a shear. Maybe you're right. When Reuven gives over the dekel and for the guf and Shimon the peiros, he's talking not giving him anything in the peiros, in the dekel itself. Therefore, Shimon has no schutz in the pairs. The shaila is la'atzmai when he says chutz miperaisim mao. When he says I'm willing to give you the dekel tree, but I want to keep the guf. I want to keep the pairs for whatever amount of years. There we have a tzad to say that in such a case, a person taka leaves himself stakes in shear, whatever you want to call it, shears in the tree that the makim tzimuach haperi where it grows, you're keeping for yourself. I will tell you that you have a shear makom peri. I will tell you that dekel la'echad the shear peraisa lefanav then shayir makom peri. He wants to say when you think about yourself, there you always go an extra step. My time we all know. Kol legabe nafshei be'ayin yafim shayir, which means it's very nice. We saw this many times regarding the sugis or abanon and rakiva meicha b'ayin ra or meicha b'ayin yafa. There's no shiloh. However, when it's you in the parasha, suddenly you go an extra level and you hold on to much more. We We have this by Shimon and Shlakish. A person sells a house. This is the beginning of the fourth parak. The Rashbam over here says it's Aliyah Yaina. We learned it earlier. It also means like a rooftop, a nice gated rooftop. The halach is the Yaita Yaina Shalai gets the rooftop. And this is part of the Shaili. If a person gives the house to Reuven, V'diyaiti gives the rooftop, we'll call it, or the attic la'echad mao. Me have a shear I like. Do we say in such a case that he's leaving over for himself or not? Intim shalayim ba'is la'echad v'diyaiti la'echad lo have a shear. What about himself? Again, same type of concept. Chutz midiyayta ma'u, on that Amar of Amar Nachman, intim shalayim ba'is la'echad v'diyaiti lo have a shear. Chutz midiyayta, when it comes to yourself, have a shear. V'alibidar zvit. What's the mean alibidar zvit? We learned over there already in that Mishnah that if a person says, I'm selling you a house, he doesn't sell the diyaita. So why in the world does he mention, but not the diyaita? Why you mentioned that, even without it? So we saw a Scheiner, a pupper, or zvid, or zit says, the chiddush over there is to tell you that you can use the airspace. They're able to take the beams into the airspace. So if you sold the chatzah to Reuven, he say, but I want the attic for myself, I'm really giving myself a schus that I can take beams that are protruding into your airspace. That's why I mentioned this. So we're going to leave it there, zvid. The Amashim Ratzel Haitz Mazizin, he wants to take out these beams, Maitzi. Amo, again, we see keeping the Shire Diyuta. Malkim Zizin, Nami Shire, same type of concept, Achanami, keeping the Amachutz Mibraisov, Malkim Payer Shir, they take it out. However, the concept is simple that we're trying to bring out this, but what? When it comes to yourself, a person goes an extra level and he keeps it for his own. Amar Rav Yosef Barin Menyumi, Amar Rav Nachman. Shchimra Shekasav Kol Nechasav Lacher. Person goes to Shchimra, he's dying, gives over all his entire possessions to somebody, to everybody. So Ryan, we evaluate. If Lamaisi is given out, Reuven's given, he's given the houses over here, the houses over there, he's given away everything, then Mace, if he dies, Taka Kana Kula. Everyone gets his Amat Neshchimra. But Amat Chayze Bekula. So we all know that if he recovers, we say that that's the concept of Amat Neshchimra, that it's only if he dies. If he ends up recovering, he gets it back. Im Ben Nimlach, the Allah is he could be Chayze. Mace, Karnakula, no problem, if he gets it back. Ahmad, which means to say is, Sunday morning he gets up and he gives 100% of his nechasim to Reuven. And then on Tuesday he says, you know what, I'm taking it back, but I'm going to give 10% of my nechasim to Shimon. So the halacha is, if you leave over anything to yourself, you're not considered a regular matnash chimera. Then even if you recover, you're not allowed to come and take that 10% back. Therefore, ein chayzer ela ba'achron. However, the last percentage of money that you're giving to Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, V'chulei, it comes out that the last person who got the matana got your last possessions. So whenever you're left with nothing, we say the last possessions go back. Maybe what he did was, he was evaluating. He wasn't 100% sure who to give the nechasim to. He's ma'ayin. Well, I'm not sure who to give it to. First, let me give on Sunday, I'll give it to Reuven. Then let me think about it, and Shimon, I'll give him Monday, whatever. My answer is no. You know why? A person doesn't do that. The way a shchimera works, he first makes a cheshbon in his head. Exactly, I need to know what I own. This guy owns multiple properties. Now I have a very clear picture of what I own. What he does is, he gives over Reuven, the house is over there, Shimon, the house over there, etc., etc. And he recovers. You know why? Shema, word about he has nechasim in other places. You're always chayshish that he might have ever nechasim. How could our Mishnah stem? Our Mishnah says, Diktani loy shir karka kolshu. You give over everything. We should be chayshish. Maybe you have nechasim in a medina acheres. But I'm kol. He underlined the word. He says everything. So there's no shayla. He's giving away all his nechasim. Kol nechasai. Now, Rav Ashi Amar, no. We're talking about the Muchzik law on the last lay. We all know you had one house over here, one house in Yerushalayim. That's it. Therefore, when you have a chazaka, you're not chayshish. Now we're going to go through a shayla in the Gemara. If chazara b'mixas have a chazara b'kulas. So let's just explain this outside very well, like that. It'll be easy to read inside. Chazara b'mixas have a chazara b'kulas is a scenario as follows. You give 100% of your nechasim to Reuven. And you said, you know what, on Sunday morning, it doesn't make a difference when. You take 30% of those possessions and you give it to Shimon. The shayla is, when you took 30% back from Reuven and gave it to Shimon, were you chayzer completely from Reuven or not? What's the nafkamina? Nafkamina is as follows. Let's go through it. Chazara b'mixas have a chazara, which means to say is a chazara. Therefore, if Enochanami, he took away from Reuven, if he dies, Reuven's not going to get anything. Now Shimon, if it's a chazara, Shimon, if he in a scenario where he dies, Ein Hanami. Shimon's going to get the 30%. However, in a scenario where he doesn't die, Shimon is going to get it only if you hold Chazar b'mixas have a Chazara. And the reason is because I have 70% on the Chasim, because I took it away from Reuven and only gave him 30. And the halacha is as follows: as long as what? As long as you have Nechasim left over, if you recover, you can run it back. If you have no Nechasim left, you can get it. So if you hold Chazara b'mixas have a Chazara, now that you took away the Nechasim for Reuven and only gave 30% to Shimon, you still have 70% Nechasim left. Therefore, what? Shimon in a Chanami is going to get to keep the Nechasim. So it doesn't make a difference, have a Chazara, whether he's Mace or not, he gets it. Shimon's going to get to keep the 30%. Let's go the other way. Chazar b'mixas, lo yavi Chazara. So then the nafkamina is, what happens if he recovers? Since in the scenario he recovers, we had 100% Nechasim to Reuven, he gives 30% Nechasim to Shimon. In such a case, we say, lo yavi Chazara, so it comes at him, Amad, if he recovers, he's able to take away from Shimon because he was left over with nothing. Again, we have to remember this is only a Chazara Daf Yomi, but this is quite extensive. The Chazara b'mixas have a Chazara not. See, boilu Chazara b'mixas have a Chazara b'kula oilai. So let's bring a raya. Tashma, it says as follows: if a person says kulan l'rishon umixason l'sheni, so we're going to show us a raya. The Chazara b'mixas is have a Chazara. In halacha that you give 100% Nechasim to Reuven, mamash this case, if you give mixason l'sheni, the halacha is sheni is kana. Sheni, the second Shimon gets the 30%. Rishon, loy kana, the first person doesn't get it. My love, we're understanding Bishames, and he died. So again, Shimon is going to get his 30% even though he died. Why? Because he's gone. However, we're trying to bring a raya that the reason why, and we see the Rishon loy kana, because Chazara mixes have a Chazara. Where it says no, loy b'shama, there's no raya. You know why Rishon's not getting it? Because he's recovered. Therefore, in a Chanami, since he recovered, you could show us that what? It's nothing to do. The reason why Shimon, Reuven's not getting because of Shimon. Now, to bring out one point, which is very complicated, is that the Maskonas Gemara, the Rabbi brings this out. Let's remember that really there's no raya over here. Why? Because you're telling me that what? Rishon is what? Not getting it? Why is Rishon not getting it? You're telling me I gave 100% of Chasim to Reuven, I gave 30% to Shimon, and then Ahmad, and he stays alive. So if he stays alive, Rishon is not getting it. Why is Shimon getting it? Manavshach. If you hold Chazar b'mixas have a Chazar or not have a Chazar, Shimon shouldn't get it if it's b'shamad. Elamai you have a raya. That what? That be'etzim Chazar b'mixas lo have a Chazar. So Rishbam does say Maskonas Gemara be'etzim you have to learn like this. I'm understanding that the whole raya is lo b'shamad and just being a dichui, saying you can't really bring a raya that Reuven Chazar b'mixas have a Chazar because it could be talking that he's alive and he took it away from Shimon. Okay, Achanam Yistabra in the Ketani Seif it says Mixasa on the Rishon, V'kula on the Sheni. You give, let's say, 30% to Rishon. And then you give everything else to Sheni. Rishon kana, Sheni like kana. Second person not getting anything. Now, for the yeah, Bisham Shamad, we understand. He recovered, Mishamachi Sheni like kana. Eliyam Bisham Mace, you're telling me he died, he's left with nothing. Why is it Tavayu Likni? Everyone should get it because we're talking about a mace. This is what we're talking about, the Reisha. That even the Reisha, what I was telling the Maskonas Gemara, Dr. Vashi, Avadi can be talking about recover. So Manavshach, Bishma Chazar mixes have a Chazara Bekula. Hainu the Sheni, we understand the second person gets it. You know why the second person gets it? Sheni Miaskana. Because Shimon, that's left with 30% at that time, since Chazar mixes have a Chazara, the 70% that I gave to Reuven is in my hands. And if I have Nechasim left over, and I gave a Matana to Shimon, as long as I have Nechasim left over, even if I recover, I don't get it back. You ended up with nothing. So right now, this mace, even if he's Ahmad, he's left over nothing. If so, why in the world Shimon getting the 30%? Elamai, we have a bomb, right? That what? Chazara b'mixas have a chazar. The hilchas attack of chazar mixas have a chazar b'kula. And in a chanami reisha is gimashkachas lo bein shemeis bein sha'amad. Doesn't make a difference if he's alive or not. That what's going to happen is that Sheni is going to be kind of mimanav shach. Seifel lemeshkachas la elo kisha'amad. The second case is only when he recovers he gets back his money. Otherwise, he's not going to get it back. Iboilu. Now we're going to go through a few cases. Do we say it's worse than a matana, or maybe it's better? Iboilu. Higdish kol nechasav amad. A person's magdish is nechasav. Though what's the shaila? Mount me amrina kol agabe hegdish gamar makni. Even if you recover, your das is to completely give it. By dilma no kol agabe nafshay. You have to remember He's thinking to himself, I gotta live if I survive. Another shayla would be hifker kana chasam mao. Mi amrina kim the aflaniyim kashirim. Everyone can take a gama makni. A demo kana gama shayla gama makni. It's second case. Third case is chila kana chasam laniyim. He goes to Tem Chashavas and gives up all his money. My mi amrina tzedakah. Therefore, vayde migma gama makni. A demo again kala gama shayla gama makni. And we talk oblige with the teku. It's not clear. And you have to know if the person that recovers is able to take it back. Lishna Chrina, Higdash Kana Chasam Mao, Hifka Kana Chasam Mao, Chila Kana Chasam Laniya Mao, Teku, similar law Lashin, they just go direct. The Rashal takes this out. Amrav Sheshis. Now a person says as follows: Yitol, I want Reuven to be Naitel, or Yiska, I want Reuven to be Zeichet, or to be Machzik, V'Yachzik, V'Yikna, Kula Lashon Matanein. All these is a good Lashon, and he doesn't have to say, I so and so, I'm giving over my Nechasim to Reuven to be Naitel. It's good enough to throw a Lashon. You Reuven should be Naitel my Yerusha. B'masnisatana, we even learned that what? Af yichsim v'yaris, which is a lashon Yerusha, b'rei liyarshai. He says to his sons, we all know Shitas Rabbi Yochanan Baraika, that a person can say as long as it's rei liyirash, a person can say it. So as long as a person says, Reuven, one of my sons, I want him to be Yarisen, which is a lashon Yerusha works. Ibayluhu. Now we're going to have a shiloh with different lashonis. We're on Kuf Mem Tesam at Al top of the Amid. Yehena behen mahu. When a person says, I want him to benefit. Do we say kula matanakam? I want it to completely own it. Oh, I know. Dimalisani minayu midi kamar. I'm not giving you to own it completely. I want you to benefit. You can use my car for your benefit. When a person talks like that, no one thinks he owns the car. It means whenever I need the car, I can use it for my benefit. Or yera'eh behen ma'u. He should be seen with my nice nechasim. Or yamoy behen ma'u. He should, in such a case, he should stand with his nechasim in such a case. Yishain ben, he can rely on this. Mahu, what is the halacha? Take, we believe with the take. Ibailu. Machar kol nechasim mahu. What happens? Reuven gets a notice from his doctor. He has a few weeks to live. So he goes and sells all his nechasim. So the Rabbeinu Gershom is mazbah, the tzadim, the two tzadim as follows. Let's be real. Tzad Aleph is, no one goes and sells everything he owns unless he's dying. Therefore, it should have the concept. We could clearly see that you're selling your nechasim because you're dying. Therefore, if you recover, you should be able to get back the mechira. The other side is, buy a matana, you're left with nothing to live. So no normal person would do it. Mashenk over here, if a person sells his nechasim, you still got money. That's why the side is to say it's a good sale. So I'm reviewing them Rav. It depends. Im amad einu chayzer. V'zimnin I'm reviewing them Rav. Im amad chayzer. V'lay pligi. He says conflicting statements. One time he says it is chayzer, one time he says not. The Gemara is masber. Ha de isni lezuzi beinayu. If a person sells his nechasim and he's holding on to the money, and he doesn't let go of the money, then we say if he recovers, he gives it back. However, if he went and paid back the money, then we say the sale is ready. Over. Shchimra gets up and says, you thought this nechasim in Yerushalayim is mine, it doesn't belong to me. What's the stud? The Rishbam says that sometimes you don't want to sound like a gvir. You're nervous that everyone's going to pound your kids. A lot of times you make it, you want to fake it that you're not such a gvir, like that no one's going to attack your kids. Or the other side is, let's be real. He's maida. Maybe he's worried about the upstairs. He's getting worried. Therefore, he's maida. So Tashma, we're going to bring a Maisa Shahaya was as follows. The Isser Gavaya. The Isser Giyayra. Who is Isser Giyayra? We all know. We all know Rachel Bas Mar Shmuel. Now what happened was Isser was Baal, the daughter of Shmuel, while she was a captive. And Taka, what happened was they had a baby. It was a Rosh Shaloi B'Kedusha. Isser became a ger. And we had the son that was born through this capture, his name was Rav Murray. Now let's be real. Rav Murray, halachic status is not related to his biological father, who was a ger, since it's a Rosh Hashanah Kedusha. So this Isser, that's his name, he was the ger. He had 12,000 zuz in Rava's house. Now we all know, we learned Nichse Ager, Harein Kahefker. So Rav is holding on to the money. Rav had a chap. Isser Giyayra has no real yarship, because Rav Murray is not a Yairish. So Rava started saying to himself, again, the Rishonim explained that Rava wasn't looking to take the money, he wanted to give it to him as a matana. But Rava, let's use it as a basic, Rava said, I get to keep the money. And we go through the case. So let's see it inside. The Isser Giyayra Havele Trace Alpha Zuzu. We're trying to bring a raya that Aidah should work. Because a patent to get out of the scenario that Isser is going to be able to say, give Aidah that the money belongs to his son, Ramari. Tashma the Isser Giyayra Havele Trace Alpha Zuzu Be Rava. He had 12,000 zuz sitting in Rava's house. Rav Mari Barei, we all know, was a Rasa Shalai B'Kedusha, but the Valadasa was B'Kedusha, but it doesn't make a difference regarding Yerusha. You're not considered a son. Ubei Rav, you have to know why. Bechla mentions that he was a Talmud. He was in the academy. Oh, it's nothing to do with the Maisa. Amar Rava. So Rava says, hey, chiniknuna Ramari lahani zuzi. How could Ramari the son get it? Ibi Yerusha, la bar Yerusha, because it was a Rasa Shalei B'Kedusha. Ibi Matana, that only works. Matnash Chimera only works. Ki Yerusha Shavi Rabbanan. And therefore, Kol Hecha de Yisa Yerusha Yisa Matana, Kol Hecha de Lasi Yerusha Lasi Matana. If a person is not a Yerush, he has no powers of Yerusha, can't give him Matnash Chimera. Ibi Mashicha, you want to do Mashicha? Las Nugabe, it's sitting in my house, the money. So how in the world can you do Mashicha? Ibi Chalifin, we learned in Azav. Eimat Me Nikna B'Chalifin. Iyagav Karka, he knew that less Le'ara. This Isigir and no other Karka. Even Mamish Shleishan, when we learned earlier that it works. Ishalachli, if he comes and calls me, Les Lina. Then in order for Mamish Shleishan to work, all parties must be there. I'm not going to show up. So Maskular Vika B'Derabami Amai. What's the problem? Have an easy out. V'loidi Isser de Lahalan Zuzi the Rav Marininu V'lekninu B'Edusa. Mamish our Shailan the Gemara. Faidaka works. So let Isser come and give Aida that it should work. Adahachi Nafak Taka Idisam Isser and that Kachava, and that was the patent. Ikbid Rava got very upset. They learn my halachas, my tainas that a person could do, and then ends up coming back to bite me. Again, you have to understand that Rava wasn't coming to just take away the money. Taisus Bechlal goes through it, how you have to know the Chari should have halacha of mitzvah l'kayim divramis. Okay, we are in Tukuf, Mem, Tes, Amid Beis. We learned Shir, Karka, Kolshu, Matanasa, Kayemis. Our Mishnah clearly says if a person leaves over any Karka, the halacha is it's a good Matana. The Kama Kolshu. How much is Kolshu? So I'm going to review them around. Karka, as long as he leaves enough, Kedei Farnasasa. You have to leave. Let's say he needs $15,000 a month to live. It's good enough if that Karka brings in that much money. Rav Yirmi Baram Amar doesn't mean Karka. Who de metaltalin? Metaltalin Kedei Farnasasa. The point is he leaves something to live on. Amar Rav Zera. Kama Mechavnun Shmaitza the Savi. This is talking about Rav Yirmi and Yehuda, these elderly people, how geshmak it is. Because Karka Taimamai Dika Samich. The point is, they're able to live in it and rely on that money coming in. What's going on? Then you're not making sense. State what is there, Mishnah? Karka tanan. What's our Mishnah say? Kol shu tanan. So Abaye asks him, the Tani Karka dafka means Karka, not anything else. Karka dafka. Tanan, we have a Mishnah. We're going to see this Mishnah. If a person writes all his nechasim to his evet, yatzav in chayrin. Why? Because the evet eventually becomes a master on himself, and therefore he can get himself freed. However, shir karka kolshu la yatzav in chayrin. That sheet is Tanakam. And Shimon Aimer la'ilam yatzav in chayrin. Hu la'ilam hu ben chayrin. Achi yaimar kol nechasa nesun leplani avdi chutz mecher b'aya less a piece of a 10,000. Then the shebahan. Then he's not meshucher. And the Rashban says he just they're covered kasav la'av dekach. However, he's not kind of anything. V'amar of Dimi, one kufnu nominal. V'amar of Dimi of Yisam, Rabbi Lezer. Asu metaltalin shir tzelevet. V'loy asu metaltalin shir tzel ksuba. Dahainu. Who adin, if a person leaves over metaltalin kolshu by the evet, the halacha is by the evet, since an evet is not mechuber l'karka, and everyone understands we call it evet as a metaltalin. Therefore, it's lav dafka when it says karka is lav dafka. Who in our Mishnah when it says metaltali and it says karka kolshu, it could be metaltan. By ksuba, rather not, because we all know by ksuba that she's relying on the ksuba money. Therefore, by metaltan, other rabba, she's not makbid, and we don't see the shtika as a mechilas ksuba. But again, we're bringing a raya that it doesn't have to be dafka karka. My answer is no. Hasam bedinu delaylis ni karka. You're right. Ba'atzim I shouldn't have said karka. The ID, the Tana Reisha, this is talking about the Sugya of a Kosikon Chazal, not our Mishnah. The ID, over there, the Tana Reisha, Bekiva Aimer, since over there it says the Karka, talks about the halachas of Karka. We learned this once already, earlier, in the beginning of the parak. Karka Kolshu, the halacha is this, Chayevis Bepeya, even if it's a Kolshu Bebekurin, V'lichta V'lem Prusbula works, V'likna Simam Nechatzim Shein Lemachrayim, Ein Lemachrayis, Bekes Mishtav Chazaka. That's why Mishamachi Tani Karka. That's why it says Karka. However, in our Mishnah, there's no reason why she say Karka. Therefore, we're trying to say it's Meduyik that it's Dafka Karka. Now we're going to go on to Kolshu. Frektamar v'chalecha the Tani. Kolshu. Lesle Shiur. Wherever Mamish says Kolshu means the Shir Vatanan. We find by the Reishis Agais. Reb Daisi v'anachinas ayim chamish rechelis. Geizis manu fras chayavis Reishis Agais. Now Reishis Agais also has a minimum. We all know, it's like Bikurim, same type of concept, the first sharings of the wool must go to the kohen. However, there's a measurement, there's a minimum. What's the minimum? It's a machlokes. Some want to say it's 5 sheep. Each one needs to produce a mana of fras, which is 25.5 ounces. So 25.5 times 5, we're talking about 127.5 ounces. That's Shitas Tanakama. That's Rabbi Ben Akinas with Shitas Tanakama. But Chachamim Ma'imrim, no. Chamesh Rechelas Geizes Kol Shein, which is, this is the diak, it says Kol Shein. And we ask, Ramina Kama Kol Shein, and Amarav, Manu Fras, 25.5 ounces. Ubelvad Shum Chamashes. That has to be split up evenly in 5 different sheep. So it comes out 5 1/5 is good enough. So again, our raya is, we see by the ratios against is that what? It says Kol Shein, which is Lashon Shir, Kol Shun. It doesn't mean Kol Shu. It means 25.5 ounces. Maran says no. Hasam. Bedinu delay listen Kol Shu. You're right, but the ratio against it shouldn't have said Kol Shu because it's a shear. The I did the Kamar. Tanakama Shir Rabba, Amiyu Namashir Zitra Kari Law Kol Shu, which means to say is, shear of Tanakama is 127.5 ounces. When you're talking about such a small amount, you're using a lotion of Kol Shu. And a guy says, you owe me $1 million, and he writes you out a check for $1,000. You start life, you give me a Kol Shu. It's a normal way of talking. You're not paying me anything. Kol Shu means $1. No. Compared to the bigger picture, that we're understanding it's a Kol Shu. Pshita. Omar metaltul the planya. Person says, I'm giving over all my metaltul to the pliny. So kol mani tashmishte, all the utensils in the house, everything goes, is kani. It's kani to him. Lebar, michiti visari. However, the chitin of the sermon, and not kainin, the Rashbam says, huadin, there's behemoths. Kol, he uses a very clear lashon of kol metaltul the planya, then afilu chiti visari, vafilu the rechaim el yaina. What's the difference between rechaim el yaina and the tichtaim at tichtaina? The Rashbam is mazah, but the upper, we learned this extensively. We saw this in the beginning of the prokem. However, rechaim el yaina is that you moved it to fix. However, the rechaim at tichtaina, you fixed it by mekayma. However, it wasn't connected. It wasn't mechuber lekarka. However, so therefore rechaim el yaina kaina lebar rechaim at tichtaina. However, he says kol. Then metaltuli, then afilu rechaim at tichtaina kai. Iboilu, we have a shaila. Is an eved. How does a person view an eved? Now we all know eved is hukash l'karka. That's not the shaila of Gemara. Shaila is how do we view an eved? Eved is a kimekarkai oy kimetaltuli dami. How do we look at it? So I'm like Rav Avi Rav Ashi Toshma. Let's bring a raya. Hamoiches seir. It's also in the Mishnah in the beginning of the 4th parak. Hamoiches seir. Machar batim shichin amar. So Mechat says a person sells a city. Sells the houses, the trench, the vaults, all different types of pits, and the shower houses, the Beis Avadim, the olive press, Uveis Shalchin in the field, it's irrigation field. Avaloyas and metaltlin. You don't sell the metaltlin. Then the cars, everything is sold. Even when you have an animal, a slave, Harei Kulan Mechur. So what's the raya? This is a shaila. If Evan is a metaltal, we understand, because the person clearly said, I'm selling you all my metaltal, and it says clearly only the sefer you get the Evan. The ratio you clearly don't get the Evan. So for Ekdamari, you tell me it's metaltal? Then my afilu, how do you read the sefer? Evan is metaltal. Why does it say afilu the behema Evan? It's pashut. You know what the chiluk is? Shani metaltal denied me metaltal the loinite. We saw this already, the sugya lamed vav, where we handled gaidrus einlan chazaka, where mechalik, that you can't compare a pen is sitting in my rishus. You're right, it's metaltal, but it's right, it's mine. Mashenkin eved walks, therefore you can't compare the two. Who did by karka? You're right, a person sells his ear, and he's selling what? Karka. But it's a chiluk, karka that moves, versus karka that doesn't move. Afilu tema, you can say evidence kemakakoi dami shani mekaka denayit mimekaka deloinayit. His havamin his das when he sells the ear is only to sell a karka that doesn't move. Amle Ravina Lavashi Toshma Hakoisev laavde kon chasav yaitzev in chayr shir karka kol shul lo yatzev in chayr. In Reb Shimon, we're quoting what we said earlier. Reb Shimon ayim l'aylam ben chayr nachi yom until he says kol nechasay nesulin neploini avdi chutz me'echem mirbayah shaban. V'amar Avdimi bar Yosef, Amar Abelezer, this is the raya. Also metaltal and shir it's 11. V'lo also metaltal and shir it's ksuba. This is the raya that we clearly see that what? That an evet is considered a metaltalin. We're clearly saying that also metaltalin shir la'evet. Alma, we clearly see k'matatoi dami, and there's no way out of this. V'amar Rav Nachman, my taima. Avdo is metaltalu. This we should underline. Metaltal have a shir. The ksubas isha is Mikarkoyu metaltal karko lo yavashir. On that right away, one kuf nun on Beis. Omar lay no. On that Rav Ashi tells Ravina, you're making a mistake. Avad, I can tell you that was lo ilo mei malach. It's karka. You know why they made taltal and shir tzeleven? Not because of Nachman, rather for a different point. Mishom de lav kroz gita mes nisan law. Dainu. Evet Dr. Ishbam is learned from law to an isha, and just like Ben Isha, in order to completely work, you have to completely 100% be a krisis. You can't leave something in the marriage. It's either married or not married. Who did by Evet, since we learn it from law, it has to be the same type of thing. That if a person writes to an Evet, he wants to be Yaitzel Chayris, it has to be a complete Chayris, otherwise he's not considered Meshucher. Amar Rava, one top of Kufnun Amar Beis, the top of the Amar Rava and Achman. Chamisha, there are 5 different halachas. The Chamisha, we're going to see what they are. Achi yichtvu kol, until you write completely kol, nichse. Ve'elohein. The Shchimera, we're going to go through all of them extensively. The Shchimera, Avdoi, Ishtoi, Uvanov, in the case of Mavrachas. Shchimera is Mamash our Mishnah. We learned it. Now, what's it say in the Mishnah? Shchimera shekasa kol nechasa la'acherim. Dafku b'shir karka kolshu. Matnas hakeyemes. Lo shir karka kolshu. Ein matnas hakeyemes. So we see by Shchimera, it's totally on kol nechasim. Second case is Avdoi. Ditnan akaisa kol nechasa la'avdoi. Only when you completely give over the nechasim yatzim v'charin. Shir karka kolshu. Lo yatzim v'charin. What's the case of an ishtoi? If a person writes his nechasim to his wife, only when it's 100% the nechasim, we say a person would never do such a thing. You don't give over Yerusha. Rather, you did it for the kavod. You made her apotropos like that. The kids could be mechaber. We learned it. Banov, the fourth case is when a person writes his nechasim to his son, and the shaila is if the ish is quiet, is it considered mechila? The kasav leishtoi karker, as long as you wrote a karker kolshu, that's when you say she's meichel of the ksubasa. That's the fourth case. In Mavrachas, the case of Mavrachas means, what's the case of Mavrachas? When a person's remarrying, the Isha wants to get remarried, she doesn't want all the money going to the new husband. So she gives it to a third party. We're going to see a Maisa, she even gave it to her son, in order that the new husband can't come and take away everything. So a case of Mavrachas also. In a scenario where you don't explicitly say you're doing it as a Mavrachas. The Amamar, Mavrachas tzricha shetichtav, again, call, underline the word nechasel. However, in all these 5 cases, Bekulu, metaltali have a shear, except the case of ksuba, lebar meksuba, the what? The mekarkoi tekin rabbanon, on metaltalin loy tekin rabbanon. Amema Amar, whoever Mema says metaltoi dechsivi beksuba. If you write in the ksuba, you're going to give these metaltalin, the isnu benayin, they're still there, and then avad have a shear because you wrote in the ksuba. Amar, now we're going to go till we're going to see all the way. We're going to go through this quite extensively till kufnon alf and alf. We're going to talk about when a person says nechasim. What is called nechasim? Is my chickens called nechasim? My birds? Hekdish, behemoths, many different objects. Is it considered halachic dik? Is it considered nechasim? So let's jump right into it. Omar nechasai should go to the Pliny. So let's go through it. Avda and Eved, we clearly know it's considered nechasim. Ikunechsi, ditnan, hakoisav kol nechasav. And what's it say? Kol nechasav adi yatzim mechayin. Salam is nechasim. Ara, land, is also called nechasim. Ikunechsi. Ditnan, nechasim, underline the word, sheish lamachrayis, which is karka. Niknim because of chazaka. Glima. Clothing, the Shmam says, who would then shar metaltalim? But we're using clothing, which is normal, a cloak. Ikri nixi ditnan, v'shein lemachrayis, which is talking about this. Ein niknin lemushicha. Zuzi, money, is also ikri nixi ditnan, v'shein lemachrayis, niknin im nechasim, sheish lemachrayis. More than that, we learned this in a Maisa because of chazaka. Ki ha, there are papa. In the scenario we learned earlier. On Ayin Zayin, there are papa. What happened was, papa, Havale Trace Alve Zuzi. He had 12,000 Zuzi Bebe Chazoi. And what happened was he wanted to send the shliach to get the money, but he was nervous that he's not going to get back the money because the person's going to say, I'm afraid to give it, because what happens if you lose it on the way back? So what did he do? Papa Knivna Leler Shmuel Bar Acha, Agav a safe for the Beis on the top of his doorstep of his house, like that, it belonged to him, the money, but what are we seeing? The Zuzi is called money. Ki Asa, then Taka, when he came, Nafak La'apat Tavach, he was so excited that he went all the way there. Shtara, we see that star is called Nixi Ikr, Nixi Damar Rav Yitzchak. There are 2 types of stars. Shnei star is saying, Amar, if a person says, Zichu b'sadazah, leploini, vikisvul is a star. So I want to give over this sada and write a star. The halach is, regarding the star, which is evidence that what he did, he could be chayzer, he has it right. Chayzer b'star, ve'ena chayzer b'sadazah. The sada is already gone. However, al-manas, he says, al-manas, shetichtav is a star, chayzer, and then he can even be chayzer, be'en b'star, be'en b'sadazah. Ve'rachir b'ravin, and the Shbam Zmaz, he's not coming to argue, el lahaisit, that there's another case. Ve'rachir b'ravin, amar Ravuna, shalosh shleisha star is saying, There are three types. Trey, Hani Diamond, like we just said, whether it's a Tanai or not a Tanai, that's a Shayla, could be Chayzer. Idach, there's another case. Im Kadam Meichev Kaisiv is a Shtar. The Shbam is Mazra, a person, a lot of times, he wants to have his Shtar already prepared and ready, that if he finds a buyer, he could quickly convince the buyer just to hand it over, give him the money, so he prepared the Shtar earlier. Kaisiv Shashanina, like we learned, one Kufna and Alpha and Alf. A person is allowed to do that. Why? Because the only person, it's enter your own risk. The only person who's going to lose is the meicher himself, that he might get lost and the guy might find it. But once the lekeach buys taka the karka, who does a chazaka, nik neshtar kamakim shehu, vizu sheshaninu nechasim shein lemachrayis, niknim nechasim sheish lemachrayis. How? Bekesev v'shtar v'chazaka. But again, we're all bringing this whole rice of one point. The shtar is called nichsi. Behema. We also find the animals ikru nichsi, the tanan. Hamakdish nechasav. V'aysa ben behema. We evaluate ruyin legabim mizbech. If it's charm, it goes for eilis. V'nekevas you have to do for shlomim. See machul itzarchin zevche shlomim. But again, what do we see? Hekdish nechasav. We're handling behemas. Oifos, the birds ikru nichsi, the tanan hamakdish nechasav. V'aysa ben dvarim ruyin legabim mizbech with the yeno shmonim. Again, underline the word v'ayfos and the birds. Tefillin. Ikri nichsi, the Tanana Makdish, Nechasav, a person's Makadish is Nechasav. Malan light tefillin, we evaluate how much the tefillin is worth. By the way, we have a Shiloh, what about a Sefer Torah Mai? Kiva on the Elohim is Davin, since you can't sell it, unless very specifically we're going to see. The Asel is Zavuni, you can't consider Nechasim. Tefillin, you all use. Lav Nichsi, you can even sell it. Idilma, the other side is, Kiva on the Misdavin, a little Matayr, release Isha Nichsihu. So Muskarishan, before the Rishbam, the way we learned yesterday, the Daf Yomi, we explained, Muskarishan, the Shiloh Gemara really is that it's really Torah. How do you look at a Sefer Torah? Sefer Torah is never really sold. It takes very rare for it to get sold, therefore you can't consider Nechasim. Or the other side is, Lamais, you can answer. It is. You do find there are two scenarios that get sold. That's how we understood a Muskarishan. However, when you jump into the Rishbam says that Sefer Torah, the side is, maybe you can't compare it to Tefillin. Why? Tefillin is Malbushu. He says, Tefillin you wear every morning, so that we understand. Sefer Torah is not a Malbush, it's not really Nechasim. You use it. It's very interesting. The Rishbam says, Dilma Tefillin hainu taimo dahave Malbush. Our Sefer is only mitzvah v'loy nichsi. That would be the tzad. The apish, you could sell it, still not called Nechasim. And therefore, Taka, we end up with a teku. Okay, now we're going to go through many, many fascinating incidents regarding Shchimera. We're going to end the daf with this. Zimin, Zutra. We're going to see Imida Amram, the mother of Amram, Mitarti Achvasa, the two sisters, and Rav Tuvi, Rav Dimi, Rav Yosef. So let's jump right into these maisim. Let's start with the first maisim. I think we're going to see a good 5 maisim at least. Let's jump right through the first one. Imid there of Zutra, Bartovia, Kasvinu, Lenichsel, Zutra, Bartovia. What happened was, this is a scenario of Mavrachas that we learned. The mother of Rav Zutra, she figured she wanted to marry a Zvid, so she gave over all Nechasim to her son. So what happened was, the Bailan's ruler is Zvid. That's what was a Mavrachas. Lamaisa, the marriage collapsed immediately, it sounds like. In the Siva Gersha, Zvid got divorced right away. She goes back to her son. She says, it's a case of Mavrachas. I want my money back. Asik made there, so he says, no. So Asik made there, Biba Arbaya, Amma Mishum, and Zvui, Va'insuvet. Rabbi understood that the Tanai wasn't a case real of Mavrachas. The Tanai was, if I don't get married, I want the money back. That's what he understood. Lamaisa, you got married. I don't care for how long you got married. You married a Zvid, it's over. Lamaisa, so Amalei, Ravuna Ber, they were showing, Mishum the Asim Imulai, you come from Imulai, we learned this already. Amri Asim Milamul Yasa, you're saying Dvarm like a Balmum, you're not saying it comes from Beis Eli, you're not saying anything Tachlis. I feel Amanda Amma Mavrachas Kani, it's Hanimi Hechadolai Galia Daita, Vahacha. The Galia Daita, she clearly says the Mishum and Svui, I'm only giving the money because I want to marry a Zvid. So there's no Shiloh, you got to give back the money, it's a regular case of Mavrachas, Kula Amamaydu. It's Maisa number 1. Maisa number 2. Ima de Rami bar Chama, Ba'orta on the evening hours, Kasvinu l'nichse l'Rami bar Chama. Betzafra, she gets up in the morning, she regrets it, she says, no, I'm going to give it to my other son. Kasvinu l'Rav Ukva bar Chama. Now, the son that got in at nighttime, Asr Rav Chama l'Kamei Rav Sheshes, Maisa, she died. So the first son went to Rav Sheshes, and Ukmi m'nichse. Rav Sheshes gave it to him. We're going to see why. Azar of Ukva, the morning sun, which we got in the morning, Bachama Kamed Rav Nachman, he went to Rav Nachman, Ukma Menichse. So comes Rav Sheshes to Rav Nachman, Azar of Sheshes Kamed Rav Nachman. Amalei, my time Ukmi Marlo Rav Ukva Bachama. Why are you giving to Mar Ukva? Even Shum the Hajraba, you're going to say, because the morning she woke up and started to give it to them, that can't help. Vashechiva, she died. And the person already gave her the matana, it's gone. Amalei Hachim Mashmol, Kal Shilo Amad Chayzer. The halacha is, if, since it was all in Chasim, if she would recover, she would get it back, then the halacha is you can be Chayzer b'matanasai. And then he pushed him. Rav Shesha tells Rav Nachman, maybe it's only in the case of la'atzmai, la'acher miyamar. And then he answers him back. And therefore, Rav Ukva taka, the halacha is, Rav Ukva is the one who taka gets it. Third Maisa. Made there of Amram Chasida Havelim and look at the story. She had a krachshel stars, either a bundle or a bucket or natik, doesn't make a difference. She had a whole thing of stars that said all how much money people were owed. And what happened was, Kika Shachvim, when she was dying, I wanted to go to my son Amram. All the brothers complained. The Rav Nachman, he didn't do a Mashiach. You have to really know, not lav dafka Mashiach. Should really be adba. Doesn't really. The point was there's no kinyan. It wasn't so much specifically regarding the Mashiach. He answers Devrei Shchimera, Chichsuvin, Misurin, Dami, and therefore he has nothing to do about it. He gets it. Fourth Maisa. Get ready, this is crocodile tears. Achse der Rav Tuvi bar Masna, Kasvinu, Lenichsel Rav Tuvi bar Masna, Bitsafra. In the morning, the sister of Tuvi gave all over Nechasim. Lefanya in the evening, Aser Bachadui bar Masna, Bachala, he starts crying to her. Amarla Hashtam Amar Tzuvim Rabbanon, Umar Laptzum Rabbanon. You know what they're going to say? I'm not a Talmid Chacham, V'araya, you're giving it to the other brother. So what happened was, Taka Kasvinu Nahalei, and she Taka went and wrote it to Rav Achdavuye. So you have to bring out one point which we brought out yesterday. It sounds like that, there's no shaila about it, that Rav Tuvi was already well-known Talmid Chacham. Because it sounded like the Rav Achdavuye was the underdog. He was the one complaining, and she Taka listened. What happened? What's the help listening? Now they're going to say about Rav Tuvi, it sounded like. Elamai, Rav Tuvi, everyone knew he was a Talmid Chacham, and he was tying Amen on the dog, and if you're going to give it to him, everyone's going to, look, even the sister's giving all the way to the Chassim. And Taka, Asik Midar Nachman, Amalei Hacham Shmuel, again, this halacha, and the crocodile tears worked, Kol Shila Ahmed Chayzer, Chayzer B'Matanase. Fifth Maisa, the final Maisa, Achsid Rav Dima Rav Yosef, Havala Pesikta the Perdisa. He had a parcel, as Shmam says, Chatichas Karkov, a paradis, and Kol Emas, she was a person that always thought she's dying. So Kolei must have a chalsha. Every time she got weak, she would quickly call her brother. I guess she was a basula. She was never married. Maknelet ave maknele nele. He would do a full kinyan. V'chikayamu ran kufna aleph amen Beis and top of the amen. And then when she got healed, have a hajjusba. She would go back because he gave her all the nechasim. Zim nechada. He got sick and tired of this ma'isa. Zim nechada. Chalsha. She got weak. So Shalchalei, so she sends back to tell Divi, come, I'm dying. He knew this is not going to happen. Sakni. Shalach, he answers back, that's it. I'm not showing up. Laibin, I'm done with you already. Shalchalei, Sakni, Kol Hecha de Beis. No worries, this time we'll do a full-fledged kinyan. So Azal, he taka went, but he had a chap. He says, I want you to leave a piece over a karka, because he knew the Mishnah, that if a person's Meshayar karka koshu, even if you're Ahmad, you can't be chayzer. So Shayar v'kanimine. Lamaisa, she got healed. Kikayama hajjaba. He says, what do you mean? Asik with Rav Nachman. So Rav Nachman heard he wanted to call Rav Dimi to Bezdin. Shalach leisai, he sends over Azmona. Lo yasi, he didn't show up. Rav Dimi says, my icy, why should I come? Hashayar v'kanimine. He left over a piece of karka, and I know the Mishnah. Therefore, even if it's Amanei nechayzer. Shalach le, Rav Nachman says, lo yasis, if you don't show up, I'm going to hit you with a kite, the blood doesn't come out. I don't need that. I'm going to put you in chayrim. So Amalul Sa'adi, Taka shows up. After that threat, he pulls up, and the Taka asks the witnesses, what was the Maisa? Hey, have a Maisa. So Amr Hachi, this is what she was saying. Ahi, Vai the Kamisa Hachitsa, woe unto this Isha that's going to die. And there's Mount Fears, the words. And the brother's not even willing to show her up. Again, she was, sound like she Taka had a machla. She always thought she's dying. So Amalu, Dr. Nachman, she said this. In Cain, have a mitzvah machmas misa, mitzvah machmas misa is chayzer. At kan the five meisim. Itmar, matnas shchimra b'mixas. Itmar, matnas shchimra b'mixas. Amarav Amar Nachman, who did kematnas bari ubayi kinyan. No, it's my man. Scheiner mixes. Amar Rabbi Kamei the Rav Shmei the Zut Beis the Nachman. The Amar Shmei the Rav Nachman. Hare the Bach changes it. That's what's going on. Yeah, Amar Rabbi Kamei the Rav Shmei the Rav Zut Beis the Rav Nachman. The Amar, he says this in the name of the Rav Nachman. Shmei the Rav Nachman. Hare he kemat nisbari. The Hare he kemat nishchimra has both. Hare he kemat nisbari shem amad ein a chayzer. But it has a mile of a kinyan of a mat nishchimra that what? Hare he kemat nishchimra the loy boy kinyan. Amalahu, Rabbi got upset. He says, Lava Minuchu, didn't I really tell you guys? Like Sislu, Buki, Sariki, these empty jugs, these empty barrels, Rav Nachman. Why are you putting in this on Rav Nachman? Hami Achim Rav Nachman. Harei Kamatnas Bari, Ubayi Kinyan. You do need a Kinyan. So, hey, so Rav Nachman. We haven't said Shir, Kaka, Koshu, Matanase Kayamas. And my love, the loy konuminei, that he didn't do a kinyan. So you see, you don't need a kinyan. No, the Moran says, no, he answers back the boy, the konuminei, he did the kinyan. He achim a sefer, loy shir kako, koshu, ein matnasa kiamas. Well, I don't understand. Read the konuminei, my name matnasa kiamas, he did a full kinyan. Amalei hachim a shmul, shchimer, shekasa, konachas, the chayr. Alpha P, even though he made a kinyan, shekonim yadai. Amad chayzer, biyadu, shalai mitzav, lamachas misa. Therefore it works. Another kasha, Aser of Meshasha, the Rava, Maisa. Be'imon shel bnei Reichel, that was his name, it was a Zachar, Shaisa Chayla. And the mother was dying, V'amar tinasin kivnisi libiti. Kivnisi is like a brooch, it's like a decorative pin that he wants to give to the daughters. V'hu b'shnei masamon, it's worth 1 month. Umeisa, v'kayamud v'ran, the Taka gave it, this pin, this pendant, whatever it was, to the daughter. So you clearly see, they don't need a kinyan. My answer is, Hasav v'mitzave machmas misa. Eis Ravina l'Rava, I'm a tunu getzel ishti. Person says, I want you to give this get to my wife, Ishtar Shichuz El Avdi. Umeis, and he taka dies, Lo Yitnu Lachamisa. But Tnu Mana Leplaini Umeis. However, regarding the money, Yitnu Lachamisa. So again, someone sends over delivery, and he dies during the delivery. For a get, you don't. For Shtar, you don't. But for money, you do. Umimai Deloy Konimine. How do we know he wasn't going to do him the get? Ma get the law bar kinyan. So I find Deloy Konimine. So again, you clearly see you don't need a kinyan. And you afu pikain, you give it to the person who you told to give the money. My answer is Hasanami b'mitzava machmas misa. Rav Huna b'rei v'shuam b'mitzava machmas misa ba'ama you're be'etzem boy kinyan. You can ask me these brises, these mishnayos. V'chitanya hani mishnayso. You know what we're talking about? B'mechale kol nechasav. If a person is giving away everything, dahi matna shchimera shavye. It's a regular case of matna shchimera when you're giving over 100% everything. Therefore, that's why it works. The halchasa, the halach is matna shchimera b'mixas. Boy kinyan, you taka need a kinyan. The afagad the mace. Mitzava machnas misa, however, loy be kinyan, who the mace. However, amad, if he recovers, chayzer, the afagav, the loy konim, even though he didn't do a kinyan, in Yetz Hashem. Next week we're going to pick up from the top of Kuf Nun Beis Amad Aleph.